Highlights from quarter-final 1 in round 8 as we get ready to see who is going to Munich. Out on the start-finish line, it was Marcel Czincik on pole position, taking and holding the race lead down towards the first corner. Sebastian Job under a bit of pressure from Dara McCormack behind, but it was all about the grouping behind that coming down to the second corner. Defensive line being taken from Dane Warren over Enzo Benito, who was looking down the inside, but it was Patrick Holtzman absolutely steamrolling his way in onto the side of the number 37 of Enzo Benito. A couple of snaps of oversteer from Phil Denez as well, and 3 wide out onto the Parabolica, the inside line being taken from Thomas Tattler. However, once they got round the Parabolica, it was all starting to calm down. But of course, what comes next? It's the hairpin, and this is where things got turned up to 11. Getting squeezed out wide was Neva from Patrick Holtzman, and then the dives down the inside, it was Dane Warren that was spun round by Enzo Benito, and unfortunately, his chances of progressing to Munich would then come down to basically what everyone else did. He would have to get extremely lucky. Patrick Holtzman and Tim Yarshall would battle their way up towards the arena section, with Yarshall taking the inside line, battling over 7th position and losing touch of the top 6. Phil Denez trying to squeeze his way around the outside in the BMW M Team BS competition, and unfortunately was not able to do so on this occasion. Patrick Holtzman trying to get down the inside of Tim Yarshall. It was actually Enzo Benito that got pushed out wide on this occasion, and for the team's championship, he would be focused on trying to progress into the semi-finals. This would not help. He'd be spun over onto the grass after contact from that 3-wide manoeuvre, and his chances of progressing were sent down to 0. Marcel Czincik would come across the line for RHG as they would try and hunt down our team's championship leaders in Team Redline. And on to quarter-final 2 then, where Luke Bennett had pole position, this time alongside Eamon Murphy. However, it was a jump start from 3rd position, Jack Keithley, who done a fantastic job in qualifying, and it was all thrown into the bin immediately, losing out a few positions on the start and, of course, being gifted with a drive-through penalty. A spinner in the background in the form of Lucas Müller, who was sent off through the inside of the first corner on all the dives coming down to that second corner as we prepare ourselves onto the Parabolica. Thibaut Casabon well inside the top 6, also trying to fight his way through into his first semi-final appearance. Out wide was Johan Harth trying to make his way past Mitchell de Jong, who found himself way outside of the cut zone in P6, and they would all dive their way into the hairpin. Johan Harth being pushed out wide a little bit by Victor Veloso and Bunner House, who were to his inside, and the Audi R8 for the Apex Racing team would drop back to 11th. The side-by-side, though, going up towards the Mercedes Arena section was between Oscar Bixrud and Mitchell de Jong. Of course, this was for 7th on the road, but it would become 6 after Keithley's penalty, and so they were battling over that final transfer spot. Bixrud desperate to hang on, Mitchell de Jong desperate to fight his way through, fighting for positions. He's a bit low down inside the top 24. He is presently inside the cut-off point to go to Munich, but losing out points here would be a devastating consequence, and unfortunately, if that were the case, he might not be able to progress. Not into 6th place just yet, as Jack Keithley would head his way into the pit lane. Oscar Bixrud then up into 6th. The two of those two would switch around, and Mitchell de Jong would move inside the top 6 as Moritz Lerner and Niels Nyox would fight. Nyox looking for his first semi-final appearance in 3 rounds as he's trying to work his way up. Still hanging on to 4th position and still fairly happy and content in that. Victor Veloso and Bunner House having a bit of a battle for 8th position. Veloso hanging on to the advantage there as Bunner House was looking to try and make his way through, heading through the Sachs curve. Out wide, Veloso would go and the position switch would happen. Luke Bennett would take victory, though, from Eamon Murphy and Moritz Lerner. Highlights from quarter-final 3, and the big story here is outside of the top 24 runner, Tommy Østgaard starting from pole position, looking to find his transfer spot to Munich, and it could be a result like this which sends him to it. Through the first corner you go and hanging on to the race lead, a big result at the moment for the heroic team. Looking in the background, though, we've got the likes of Brzezinski fighting out with Joni Tumala, who was side-by-side through the first corner. They'd be side-by-side through the second and through the third, out onto the Parabolica. Maximilian Benneker and Kevin Ellis Jr. looking to try and fight their way through as the duo behind of Ryan Barneveld and Lasse Sorensen would fight out onto the Parabolica. Also, the Williams car would just make its way through on Joni Tumala before they got to the hairpin, and of course Maximilian Benneker would make it 3 wide as they would race it down into the brakes, into the hairpin. Kevin Siggy presently outside of the top 6 and desperate to move his way through, courtesy of fighting for the top spot in the team's championship for Team Redline. He would need to fight his way through as the the likes of Lasse Sorensen and Ryan Barneveld would fight their way through up towards the arena section. One going one way, one going the other on poor Ulas Zildrum, who would find himself in the middle of all of this. Lasse Sorensen making his way through as side-by-side up towards Mobile 1 would see the final transfer spot of Jakub Brzezinski and Maximilian Beneke fighting their way through. 6th position at the moment Brzezinski would hold on to. Beneke trying to send one down the inside. Ryan Barneveld out wide of Ulas Zildrum would be squeezed off at the Sachs curve and would go for a big spin. The BMW M Team BS competition destined to finish 12th in this, dependent on what happens here. Maximilian Beneke into the pit lane to serve a drive-through penalty on the end of the 2nd lap of the race. Lasse Sorensen down the inside of Kevin Ellis Jr., all fighting over 7th position as Kevin Siggy had worked his way through into 6th and was pulling his way out from this grouping, meaning they were just fighting over the final points-paying positions. Lasse Sorensen and Kevin Ellis Jr. having this fight out through the arena section. Ulas Zildrum looking to fight his way into all of this. Kevin Ellis Jr. just about hanging on. Ulas Zildrum would be down the inside of Lasse Sorensen and the hairpin. Side by side off the corner would see Sorensen pushed out wide. Ulas Zildrum hanging on to 8th as they would race up towards the arena section, but Sorensen is not going to settle for that. He would find a gap, he would send it in, the pair of them fighting very hard. Sorensen would come through, Ulas Zildrum would go out wide, and the FaZe Clan car dropped down into 9th. Out through the final corner though, outside of the cut-off line to go to Munich. This will certainly help. Tommy Asgard takes his first win. And then the final of our quarterfinals. It was Jeffrey Rietveld starting on pole position alongside Kayaki Oliveira on that front row as the final race in the quarterfinals down towards the first corner would begin. Graham Carroll just looking to the inside of the R8G man. It was side by side behind him though between Yuri Kazdorp and of course Isaac Price on the race down towards that second corner. Nikodem Wisniewski trying to get his way into the mix before a big dive in the background from the likes of Jamie Fluke trying to all work their way past. 2 by 2 out through turn 2 and turn 3. Yuri Kazdorp just about holding the advantage as Graham Carroll would send it in quite deep, desperate to try and hang on to the top 4. And of course, Graham Carroll looking for his first semi-final appearance since round 3 of ESL R1. He's currently inside the top 6, but how much are you going to risk it when it comes to fighting inside that top 6? Isaac Price and Nikodem Wisniewski fighting over the final transfer spot, and the Williams Esports driver to the outside of the Mercedes arena section, also with looks in the background from Mikael Gall. Isaac Price was just about able to drag himself almost alongside Yuri Kazdorp before side-by-side towards Mobile 1. Nikodem Wisniewski with the inside line. Brushes of contact here, there and everywhere. It's Mikael Gall out wide with a fantastic save. He'd rejoin the circuit just about side-by-side with Jamie Fluke. A couple of bumps over to the rear end of Nikodem Wisniewski, and once again leaning on each other on the exit of the Sachs curve as they would head down into this final section of circuit. Mac Backham and Ian Porter were battling over 10th position, and Ian Porter, Crimsix, going out wide, just about able to keep the car pointing in the right direction before he sent it down the inside of Mac Backham. Bajtska Visser also sat at the rear end of this on her debut in ESL R1, and the trio would fight over 10th, 11th and 12th. The final couple of points in the final quarter-final would see Ian Porter to the inside of Mac Backham, a dive through from Bajtska Visser to take over 11th position, and Crimsix would drop to the final position on the grid. Big stab of oversteer though from the 36, and it was the 38's opportunity to drag his way back through, and Crim back up into 11th position in the race. This fight though looked like it was destined to carry on all the way up to the checkered flag for that final points paying position. Jamie Fluke to the inside of Mikael Garland, making a little bit of contact. Garland being sent out wide, and Jamie Fluke working his way through before returning that position. Bajtska Visser looking to the inside of Crimsix, coming down into the hairpin, and Porter would run out wide, opening the opportunity for Visser to come through and take over that final points paying position. And out through the final corner, Jeffrey Rietveld would take victory ahead of Erhan Janowski and Kayaki Oliveira.
So the race went pretty well today. Ended up finishing P2. Looking forward to Monday. I think my pace is pretty good, probably the strongest it's been all year. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I need, hopefully, if making the final will be enough to make it through to the major, and then we'll see what we're able to do. Yeah. Pretty confident. Try my best.
Hello everybody, I am through to the semi-finals of ESL R1 Round 8 at Hockenheim after a decent-ish race on Friday. The final round, it's been emotional. Nothing to lose really. So I'm already through to the major, which is really, really good. And there's nothing to lose, so yeah, just no nerves, just full send, hopefully get a win. That's the aim going into tonight. Car looks strong, so the rig's ready. It's Monday morning, so a few hours yet until the race, but I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be good.
Just finished the quarterfinal for the ESL R1 Championship at Hockenheim. We just scraped through in P6. Wasn't the best quali lap. Put me under pressure in the race, but I managed to hold on. It was a good battle with me and Nicodem on the first lap, and with Yuri as well. All very fair, all very good. Really enjoyed it. Obviously, you'd rather be fighting a bit higher up. Feel pretty confident for the semis and the final. Got some stuff to work on over the weekend, but yeah, feeling good.
Just finished my quarter-final race, qualified second, finished the race in third. To be honest, very happy with that. I was struggling a lot with the race pace, so I knew I'd be falling back. Just glad to limit it to third place and safely and chilled out, having a chilled out race and nicely into the semi-final. So yeah, pretty happy with that.
It's Johnny from G2. I somehow managed to qualify for the semi-final on Monday with 6th place. I made it way too hard for myself in qualifying already, and the race start was very, very messy. So yeah, I'm just happy to survive, and hopefully I can do better on Monday, like I did the last time with pole position and 2nd place. So yeah, looking forward to that.
I didn't put in too much practice because I was already kind of qualified for the major. It was very, very unlikely for me not to make it. And so I reduced the practice to, just minimal effort because there's already the other stuff going on in the sim racing season now. Actually taking away that pressure helped me a lot in qualifying. I could put in a decent time, put it on P4. I think I got lucky with the split or with a quarterfinal 2 I think. Wasn't the strongest one. The others were more competitive, so with that time I was just about good. And then the race was very undramatic. Gained a position at the start and lost one later again against Moritz, who was just way faster. So I didn't fight it, just needed to make the top 6, which happened. And now for today, just focusing again on trying to capitalize on other people's errors. I'm not expecting to be the fastest here tonight. But again, qualified for the major, which is the main focus in 2 weeks. And that's, I think, how I'll approach this race, just get myself in a better position for the actual important major, for the prize money positions. And yeah, enjoy watching.
Well, look what we have here, everybody. It is not only the final online round right now, right here at ESL R1. Our Drivers' Championship is still going, but our Team Championship will be finalizing and ending by the end of today. And joining me throughout all of this hectic madness is none other than George Morgan. George, how is it going? How excited are you for this final round?
I'm buzzing. I have to say, Jasmine, I'm really looking forward to this one. Obviously, a lot on the line. We're at the final moments, the final steps before the Summit Major at Munich. Can't wait. The top 24 proceeding to that final showcase. It's going to be fantastic. Can't wait. I hope you can't wait either.
I'm certainly excited to dive on straight into it, but we've had lots of going on here as the weeks have progressed over here at ESL R1. My personal favourite so far, though, we have had our first lady that joined the grid in the form of Beitsker, representing BMW MBS competition as well. So I'm certainly excited about that. Really great to see some more representation. Unfortunately, wasn't able to progress through to the semi-finals, but was able to secure herself and the team some sweet points.
She certainly did. And what about the Big Mac, Mac Backham? Last chance to dance. It didn't quite work out for him. He doesn't feature in the semi-final. He is barely within that top 24, but I think his number might be up after tonight's show.
Now, also another driver that we have to talk about is none other than Sebastian Job. Came in at round number 6. Certainly stunned us all from the very get-go. The 2 races that he has participated in, managed to secure himself finals placements. Now, he needs to secure himself a minimum of P4 in the finals today in order to secure that spot at the major.
And to at least hit 96 points. Kaiki Oliveira looking to chase that vital P10 in our semi-final here to kick things off. But naturally, due to the points flurry all changing as we move through the semi-final, it could all change too for Kaiki Oliveira. We'll have to wait and see whether he can pull it off.
So basically, a little bit of a TLDR for today. We have all sorts going on at the broadcast. We have our team championship ending. We have the lineup for the major finally revealed by the end of today. We also have information about tickets for the major. But we also have a little bit of a surprise from Rensport. We haven't exactly been told what on earth is going on. We've been kept in the dark just as much as you folks at home are now as well. So I'm curious to see what this little bit of a surprise is going to be. What do you reckon it's going to be, George?
I don't know. I don't know. A present? Free gift? I don't know. Let's wait and see. I mean, we've been good people here. We've been working so hard.
Yeah, we really have. But you know what? This has been a team effort from everybody on Rensport's side, ESL R1, us here on the broadcast, but also all of our drivers as well. So let's go ahead and dive into our team championship standings. From the previous round, of course, this is not calculating or factoring in the quarterfinals that we've just seen happen. Now, talk to me about this little bit of a showdown we've got going on between Redline with their 15 finals placements so far and 3 drivers in the semi-finals. RHG, though, 12 finals placements and 4 of their drivers in the semi-finals. Is this the moment for RHG to have their, final throwdown, the last-ditch attempt to catch up?
Yeah, it really is the last chance to dance, certainly in the team's championship. It's going to be interesting. 2 of the teams very closely matched. Team Redline coming in with a huge chance, 683, but RHG, you can't count them out. They have been the form players as well, right through the championship. We'll have to see whether they can catch up with Redline.
Well, of course, these teams are also competing for this sweet, sweet prize pool, 45,000 euros for that sweet first place position. I certainly can't wait to see who's going to claim that prize pool for themselves. But similarly, we also have our Drivers' Championship. Now, we've had, as the weeks have progressed, certainly a lot of amazing drivers, but it's only the top 24 that matter. As you can see here on your screens, everybody that is highlighted in green has been locked in and is ready for the major in Munich. Anybody that has red, however, unfortunately is no longer in contention for a spot at the major. White, however, it is now or never, do or die for all of these drivers. Now, focusing in a little bit more on the red kind of side of things, the red drivers, anybody that is not attending the major that really impressed you throughout the weeks?
Yeah, absolutely, Jasmine. I mean, looking at the likes of Felipe Baptista from Furia as well, Ashley Sorensen has been putting in some huge efforts to try and get enough points. Obviously, he won't be featuring you, Lasses Yildirim, the feel-good factor at FaZe as well, alongside that of Ian Porter, who has progressed time and time again as he's gone on. Remember, he was a former Call of Duty pro, now, of course, taking the world of sim racing by storm, but he is starting to make those gains and scored his first points in the championship as well. A few others as well, creeping through the likes of Ibrahim Khan as well for BS competition, as well as many others. It's just been a feel-good factor. And what about Oscar Bixrud as well? Young man, the youngest player in the championship as well at 16 years old. He has been a sensation too.
we have been stunned and surprised throughout the entire duration of ESL R1. But of course, there is yet another prize pool on the line. Throughout the weeks of ESL R1, we have had drivers' interviews where they've mentioned that the prize pool doesn't really factor into their thoughts, their strategy, or anything like that. Do you think this outlook will change heading into the major, though, George?
Absolutely. I think obviously the priority about these rounds online is obviously to get into that top 24, but as soon as you're in the major, that is when the conversation all dictates around this conversation of prize pool money, and naturally that's going to be weighing on the drivers' heads like a rock, I would say, in many ways. But then that's what separates the greats from perhaps the not so great. We'll have to wait and see who can take advantage of their opportunity, should we say, at that final moment. 45 grand is an awful lot of money, Jasmine.
Well, what do they say? They say diamonds are formed under pressure, right? So let's see how many diamonds will get joining us at the Munich Major with our fantastic drivers for the major tier list. Now, this is going to be constantly updated as the broadcast goes on. It's going to give you updates as to who is major ready and locked in and who, unfortunately, will not be joining us there. Now, throughout today's broadcast, we will, of course, be focusing on that bottom tier. That is going to be our main focus for drivers who still have a chance to make it as well. It's going to be a really exciting broadcast. I'm certainly excited to close things out on a fantastic note with our final, online round. But for the folks that want to keep up to date with all of the ESL R1 shenanigans that we have either here at the broadcast or at the major itself, remember to type !social in the chat to get all of the links and relevant information for our social channels. And remember to use that sweet hashtag ESL R1 as well. Another reminder as well, and a big shout out to our sponsors over at VRS as well. To check out all of their products, go ahead and type !VRS in the chat. Now, I think without further ado, George, it's time for us to get a bit of a recap with what on earth went on for quarterfinals 1 and 2.
Out on the start-finish line, it was Marcel Chinchik on pole position, taking and holding the race lead down towards the first corner. Sebastian Job under a bit of pressure from Dara McCormack behind. Defensive line being taken from Dane Warren over Enzo Benito, who was looking down the inside, but it was Patrick Holtzman absolutely steamrolling his way in. 3 wide, out onto the Parabolica, the inside line being taken from Thomas Tattler, and then the dives down the inside. It was Dane Warren that was spun round by Enzo Benito, with Yarshil taking the inside line, battling over 7th position and losing touch of the top 6. Enzo Benito, he would be focused on trying to progress into the semi-finals. This would not help. He'd be spun over onto the grass. Marcel Chinchik would come across the line for RHG as they would try and hunt down our team's championship leaders in Team Redline. And on to quarter-final 2 then, where Luke Bennett had pole position. However, it was a jump start from 3rd position. Jack Keithley, who done a fantastic job in qualifying, and it was all thrown into the bin immediately. Thibaut Casabon well inside the top 6, also trying to fight his way through into his first semi-final appearance. Out wide was Johan Harth trying to make his way past Mitchell de Jong. Johan Harth being pushed out wide a little bit by Victor Veloso and Bunner House, who were to his inside, and so they were battling over that final transfer spot. Bixrud desperate to hang on. Mitchell de Jong desperate to fight his way through. Losing out points here would be a devastating consequence. Oscar Bixrud then up into 6th. The two of those two would switch around and Mitchell de Jong would move inside the top 6. Victor Veloso and Bunner House having a bit of a battle for 8th position. Out wide Veloso would go and the position switch would happen. Luke Bennett would take victory though from Eamon Murphy and Moritz Lerner.
Well, in true Luke Bennett fashion, he so far has 6 finals placements, but whether or not he can make that 7th by the end of today is a whole other question. Now, George, talk to me about some of the drivers we want to be keeping an eye on today.
Well, obviously the centrepiece is around the top 24, and these are the 3 drivers in this semi-final 1 that we've got to take a look at. Eamon Murphy, 26 points on with ranked 26 with 80 points, ranked 27, 79 points. Thomas Sattler. Sebastian Job, though, despite having a slightly different progression chart, of course, coming into this one a little bit later on, has managed to really strike an imposition against those in the mix too. So these 3 are going to be a fascinating bunch to look at. Obviously, in terms of the head-to-head, we've got to take a look at the likes of Thomas Tattler and Eamon Murphy. 8th and 7th, that's the difference. 7th for Eamon Murphy, that's the final position he needs. 8th, though, for Thomas Tattler at the very minimum. Top 6 finishes, they both share 6 apiece. With current points, 80 going to Tattler, with 79 going to Murphy as well. It is a very, very tight contest, Jasmine.
It is certainly a very close affair as well. I'm wondering whether or not the fact that this is the final round is going to be adding an extra level of pressure and nervousness that's going to ultimately show up in their driving as well. But I want to take a look at our drivers for semi-final number 1. Talk to me about some of them.
Yeah, certainly a lot of great contenders in this one. Of course, Marcel Chinchik returning to the top, Luke Bennett as well. But if we highlight those at the very bottom, obviously Sebastian Jobe, we alluded to him being one to watch. He's done so well in a short period of time. James Baldwin will be looking to recoup some great form for Mercedes as well. But nevertheless, it's all about the top 24 and getting into that segment.
Well, before I really quickly ask for yours and Lewis's predictions as well, I'm opening up the floor to the folks in the chat as well. Go ahead, get involved with our straw poll as well, and let us know who you think is going to win out for our semi-final number 1 as well. I'm excited to see who the fan favourites are going to be, but on that note, I'm going to bring in Lewis to tell me his prediction, his fan favourite as such.
I mean, I can't really get past Bennett on this one. He's looked fantastic in the quarterfinals. We know how strong he is in all of these, so I think it's probably going to be a Bennett round. At least the quarterfinal, the semi-final. We'll have to wait and see as the round progresses.
Yeah, Dara McCormack for me definitely looks like one to watch, I think, to be fair, Lewis. I've got my eyes beady on him right now. Twice a finalist winner, and he was the first to do it too, so he's where my money's going.
All right, now the real question is, do you both think that the cast the curse is going to ring true again? Have you deliberately cast the curse one of our drivers?
Oh, yeah, probably. I mean, I've written them down as well. I'm not going to show you the other side of this, but I've written them all down, so it's tough. If any of those drivers and team, I did make my team prediction as well, if any of that happens and it's the opposite, actually, no, I'm not sorry.
You're not sorry. Sorry, not sorry. Okay, one more question for the two of you. Do we think Sebastian Jobe has what it takes to make it to the major? I'm going to say yes. Yes.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, he's got all the ability in the world. I think if you put, and you alluded to it earlier on, you put diamonds, as soon as you pressure that coal turns into a diamond. I genuinely think Sebastian Jobe is that character. He has got everything in his locker that he could become a finalist, certainly contender. He could win the whole thing, to be honest.
I'm super excited as well to see how all of our drivers are going to transition from being in this online environment versus a LAN environment as well. Certainly exciting stuff to keep up with, but without further ado, gents, I'm going to throw it over to the two of you.
Yeah, certainly so. Well, the first semi-final, our first 6 drivers to progress their way through into the final, all is going to start here. And it all starts with that qualifying lap that's so important, George, isn't it?
Oh, it certainly is, and we've alluded to it time and time again, the importance of a great qualifying lap to at least put yourself in the precipice of the top 6. Right now, it's all about the final of round 8, Lewis, and at the end of the day, you want to be in that top 6 because it gives you the best starting block, certainly around a track such as this where, you know, there's certainly a lot of pressure. The question is, who has got the bottle to make it into that top 6?
Yeah, certainly. So I'm keeping my eye, by the way, on the straw poll. I'm seeing that James Baldwin's at the top of it. So again, everyone in chat, do make your votes. Let's see who you think is going to be topping this. Who do you think is going to be making it through? Who's the top honours? Post it in chat. But obviously, we do have a few other things to touch on in this. For example, there is only... We're talking the Teams Championship very quickly. There's only one Team Redline card. There are 2 R8Gs in this. We've spoken about how there's 4 R8Gs in the semi-finals, and then obviously just the 3 Team Redline cards for those going for the championship. It is super important that Bennett makes his way through as we ride on board with who I'm going to believe here is Dara McCormack into that first corner out wide. Oh, I thought that might have been too wide. It was too wide. He's had to drop down to 3rd gear, so he's got to slow down for that.
Yeah, got to slow down. It did look very wide out of turn 1 and definitely did scupper his lap to a high degree, and now it's going to really set him back at this point. Naturally, I think, you know, Jasmine's going to be rubbing her hands together at this point because obviously I was the one who predicted that Dara would do well in this session, and now off the back of this, it's now not looking too good for him in qualifying, but making his way out of the Parabolica curve, now heading down in towards the next right-hander. It's going to be very, very tight. You're pretty much turning back on this one as well. It's not quite 90 degrees, it's a little more than that, but doing it oh so well as he now makes his way through the very fast right. Barely a straight, to be honest, barely a dip in the curve, but it is a dip in the curve nonetheless, heading down through towards there. Again, a very, very tight left-hander. Very technical track here at the Nürburgring, sorry, not Nürburgring, the Hockenheimring, certainly where it delivers great racing. It also puts a lot of pressure on the drivers as well to maximise their braking points.
Yeah, certainly so. Into Mobile 1, one of the fastest corners on the circuit. Absolutely love it. as McCormack will come up towards the Sachs curve. Again, for any reminders, he is a driver that is locked in to Munich at the moment, so it's just a final round glory and to put himself in a better position when it comes to Munich. We'll discuss how all of that works in a few weeks' time. McCormack through the penultimate corner and up towards the final one. The Irishman, of course, 2 round wins in his ESL R1 career. Let's see what McCormack does across the line. The lap time is not going to be super representative, though, courtesy of that slowdown penalty from the exit of T1 of 137.5. I think 11 drivers might beat that.
Yeah, I think so too, and Luke Bennett might be the one to do it too. Of course, a man who is very successful here in this championship and now making his way through the final sector now, and very shortly through the final corner as well. He'll look to try and enlist his time as well and beat that of Darren McCormack to the top. You'd firmly expect him to do so. Very wide though out to the final corner as he looks down, maybe a little bit of frustration, but a 1:36.109 places him just under 1.5 seconds faster than Darren McCormack in second place. And bear in mind, this is one of the drivers, part of one of the teams contesting for that team's title.
Yeah, certainly so. And just to clarify, by the way, the driver that is up here is the driver that is currently on pole position. So that is Luke Bennett up above us. So you can see his reaction, how he feels, how tense it's going to be as the final drivers come across the line. Moritz Lerner will be the next one to cross as he sends his way across the line. And he will go himself to provisional pole position. You saw a little fist bump from him. So Luke Bennett will be ejected from that spot above us and Moritz Lerner will be slapped into there.
Very nearly breaking into the 135s as well, Lewis. 8 thousandths of a second away, 9 thousandths if you want to be a little bit firmer on that. But now James Baldwin, the man who's obviously the people's champion in this case, obviously, in accordance to the poll, makes his way around the final corner now and across the line very shortly in the Mercedes-AMG GT3. Goes second fastest, 15 thousandths separating him from Moritz Lerner. Incredible stuff.
Oh, this is a good lap time coming in, though, from Marcel Chinchik. I did think that Baldwin's first sector was decent. It's slightly faster than Chinchik's. That's where the Merc generally has had a faster sector when we've come to Hockenheimring on the 2 previous occasions. Marcel Chinchik into the middle sector, though, setting that 45.4. We'll see what the Hungarian will do across the line. Can he knock Moritz Lerner off of that provisional pole? Again, he sat above us. We'll see his reaction. Let's see what Marcel Chinchik does across the line. He's only good enough for second. And you saw there a little bit of an exhale, a little bit of a breath taken in from Moritz Lerner. He saw that one come across the line.
That was very tight, and don't forget, folks, we've got the poll as well in the live chat. Please make sure you have your say. Remember, Baldwin, the most popular when we last checked, but we've got Lerner up at the top. You see him in the top right of your screen now, folks. Mitchell de Jong, who's now going to look to enlist his time. Marcel Chinchik currently in second, 12 thousandths away from the top time. Mitchell de Jong looking to come and spoil the party. Only goes 4th fastest. 4 drivers within the same 10th of a second. Extraordinary.
Yeah, at the moment, that provisional pole being held by Moritz Lerner, who you can see above us in the top right of your screen. You'll be able to see his reactions throughout the entirety of the session, dependent on if anyone can beat him. Thibaut Casabon is not going to be a driver to beat in that first sector, is not going to be good enough. 21.6, so a pretty slow opening run as Thibaut Casabon, who did take part in the previous round, only got into the quarterfinals. This time coming through the Frenchman up towards the line. Casabon surely is going to be good off 6th, not even that, only 7th for Casabon. So he'll be behind Darren McCormack as Eamon Murphy will be the next one to try and take on Lerner's time. I'm not sure it's going to be good enough, George.
Yeah, well, the Redline car belonging to Luke Bennett now in between an RHE sandwich. Thibaut Casabon down in 7th. You then got Marcel Chinchik in 2nd place, who's in touching distance. But what about Eamon Murphy, who's also looking to make his way into the final, into the summit? This will be a very important lap. 6th fastest, top 6. A little indifferent. Moritz Lerner watching on, still unusurped just yet, but we've still got more cars to cross the line.
Yeah, I see at the moment Niels Nyox into this sector. Niels Nyox has had a very up and down season, normally one of the more competitive on the field. He has visited the quarterfinals and no further in the 3 previous rounds. He has struggled a little bit in the recent past of ESL R1, looking to turn that one around. The 1st and 2nd sector here for the Silver Fox is not quite good enough. It might just be 7th position as he crosses the line 6/10 down on the pole, which is still being held by Moritz Lerner, and I don't think this lap's going to do it either. It was such a strong one from Lerner.
Yeah. But also, we got the fight between that of Eamon Murphy and Thomas Tatler in terms of who's going to get through later on or higher up the order. These two, of course, the conversation of our head-to-head graphic earlier on. Can Thomas Tatler unseat Eamon Murphy, essentially qualify higher than him to give himself the best possible chance when we hit racing and go pedal to the metal? He'll come across the line, 7th fastest, right underneath Eamon Murphy. They're banded together right now.
Yeah, Neva is going to be the next one to cross the line. Not a driver, realistically, in a position to go after the Munich final, obviously in a few weeks' time. But the driver behind that, Sebastian Job, is very much in the mix with Murphy, with Tatler, drivers that absolutely 100% need to progress. There is no beating around the bush on that one. Neva crossed the line, and he's only 8th for him. What can the G2 Esports man do? Sebastian Job, we're coming to that final sector now.
Yeah, the man who would join the championship later on, obviously debuting at the Nürburgring, of course, earlier on this season. Now looking to try and enlist yet another time. Also part of that 3-car contingent, threatening to get into the Summit Major. Of course, when we go racing at Munich, can he make his way through the final corners now and come across the line and go fastest? He certainly would be one of the candidates, and he does go fastest. A 1:35.965 places him 43 thousandths faster than Moritz Lerner. And you see the reaction in the top right. He looks a bit perturbed, Lewis McGlade.
Yeah, but still a little bit of a giggle at the end there. It's a front row start from Moritz Lerner. It's fantastic. He was there for the longest time of anyone in the session. But Sebastian Job, final lap of the session, bang, onto pole position. This is why we think he is one of the drivers to really focus on his chances to progress through into the Munich Rennsport Summit. Let's take a look then at the grid, partnered by VRS, and we'll start from back to front. Thibaut Casabon and Dara McCormack having issues on their lap time, separated by hundredths, but unfortunately at the back of the field. Then Niels Nyox will start this one just inside the top 10 with a 10th position. Neva, Tatler and Murphy, will keep our eye on that fight between those two, who are desperate to score some decent points here as they look to transfer their way into Munich. But will they be transferring into the final? At the moment, the last of the spots moving through is Luke Bennett, who sat in 6th position, Mitchell de Jong alongside in the 3rd row of the grid. Then we get James Baldwin, who I think so far is your pick for victor of this race, Marcel Chinchik, Moritz Lerner and Sebastian Job on pole position. Really was a quality lap from Job to have grabbed that one right at the end, George.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, what a clutch lap. And this pretty much tells the story of Sebastian Job, does it not? I mean, obviously, looking at where he came in very late on, in comparison to the other two we were talking about in the head-to-head earlier on, stepping up, though, making those big moves. And that's exactly what you need to do to secure a place in the top 24. And he looks good value for it, Lewis. I mean, the fact that he can come in and enlist a time like that, it looked like Moritz Lerner was in full control. But to come in and go essentially 45 thousandths quicker than Moritz Lerner, it is just an incredible feat. So all the power to him. And he's put himself in a great position to essentially score some massive points and also push through to the final.
Yeah, the only thing with Sebastian Job that might be a little concerning for him is not necessarily just the pathway into the final. It's when he gets there, because the 2 previous rounds that he's done, he's looked phenomenal. In the quarters, in the semis, building his way up. Then the final happens, and yes, we know obviously there were some issues on the start of the race back in the Nürburgring, some issues earlier on as well. He's only scored like 40 or so points when he's been one of those drivers to win. Either way, we've waffled on about our predictions. I did say before about your predictions in the chat, in the straw poll. At the moment, James Baldwin is the driver at the head of that. He's currently qualified in 4th position. Sebastian Job, Thomas Tatler not too far behind. It's interesting.
I'm surprised that Luke Bennett hasn't had more of the vote, to be honest, down at 6.67%. But nevertheless, they've gone with James Baldwin, and he's still up there and in the mix, obviously. Obviously, give him a chance. You never know. And there's plenty of other names as well floating around. Obviously, I am seeing a little vote there for Dara McCormack, although I think he'll be a little disgruntled by that quali lap.
Yeah, a little frustrating indeed, but that is why we were, when we first started speaking about it, qualifying is really, really important. It does not mean, though, that you're going to get knocked out. One of the beautiful things about the Hockenheimring and all 4.6 kilometers that it has is it is an incredibly raceable circuit, particularly on that first lap coming out of turn 2 and 3 onto the Parabolica and the race down towards the hairpin. We'll see how this one unfolds, though, as we'll take a look at our starting grid for semi-final number 1. Sebastian Job on pole position alongside Moritz Lerner, who held onto the lap pole for most of the session, denied at the end as we'll race down towards the first corner. A slightly slower start from the G2 Esports man who's on the left-hand side of shot now as they race their way down towards the first corner. Moritz Lerner's got a slight overlap, has to back out of it, and this could be big for Marcel Chinchik to potentially get his way through, and James Bolban as well. They'll go either way, 3 wide up towards turn 2. That mistake from Lerner might have opened the door for those to come through. Marcel Chinchik drags it around the inside. James Bolban trying to stick it around the outside as they head out into the Parabolica. There's drama in the background for the Furia car.
Yeah, absolutely. They're dropping down like a stone. They will not be pleased with that whatsoever. But still, the fight continues up at the front end. We have, of course, got Moritz Lerner there as well. Not forgetting Marcel Chinchik, James Baldwin, also trying to work his way forward. They head down now into the very, very tight hairpin bend, now heading through Spitz Curve, and now powering onwards and upwards, heading through this next right as well. You see the Audi R8 LMS now being pressurised by the Mercedes as the R8G car of Marcel Chinchik. You see him in the bottom left of your screen now being peppered by James Baldwin, the world's fastest gamer. Enter now Mitchell de Jong as well with an almighty send, heading through now into the second sector. They go in tandem now, and Mitchell de Jong now in between him. He's got Luke Bennett as well, not to mention James Baldwin now in fourth too. The gap's so minimalistic though as they enter the stadium section. An incredible start here, Lewis.
Yeah, it really is. That was wild as they were heading through. There's more wildness happening though. Niels Nyox getting escorted out wide by Thomas Tattler. Will Race Control have anything to say about that? Big send straight back down the inside. That was very silly from Niels Nyox. That was crazy. I don't know what he was thinking there. Dara McCormack makes its way through. 3 wide as they come through. Thibaut Casabon on the right-hand side. There was nowhere for Niels Nyox to go and all of that. And it just continues. And Thomas Tattler's chances of going to Munich is over.
It is indeed. Remember, he has to try and get himself at least into the top 10 of this semi-final to at least score the necessary points to put him in the final conversation, obviously, when it comes to Munich. But now it looks like a distant memory and certainly a distant conversation. He was trying to close down to Eamon Murphy, had every chance of doing so. But obviously now, since that collision with Niels Nyox, a very controversial moment as well. No doubt the race director, Tor, is going to have a massive look at that one. But incredible scenes, baffling almost. You would have thought he would have been a little bit more careful, a little bit more calculated there.
Yeah, I mean, that was very silly to be honest, from the pair of them there. I mean, I'm sure Niels was a little frustrated about the contact between themselves at the Sachs curve, but that doesn't mean you can send it straight down the inside of the penultimate corner. Very silly racing between the pair of them, which sends them both towards the back of the field. By the way, I just want to give a shout out on the first lap, not to one of our drivers, but to drone cam operator Hugo Luis. Superb imagery on the race down towards the hairpin. Just got to check it out now. That was brilliant. As we see on board with Eamon Murphy. Will be really desperate to get past Bennett. Bennett's locked in for Munich. So, you know, in this race, he's just focused on winning. He's focused on going the distance, getting through to the final. Eamon Murphy has a lot more to play out here. And if he wants to progress his way to Munich, getting through this expedition, getting through to the final, it won't guarantee it, but it'll just put it onto a decent, a slightly more comfortable position.
Yeah, there are no assurances when it comes to racing, certainly, and especially if you're outside of that top 6, it is well and truly out of your hands. And obviously, we talk about the likes of Mac Backham, who obviously doesn't feature in tonight's semi-final. He was, of course, knocked out when we went racing in the quarterfinals on Friday, and he doesn't feature, of course, here tonight, and therefore won't be able to stake his claim or at least solidify his position heading to the major. Remember, he finished P8 when we went racing, of course, on Friday night. And Porsche Coanda are obviously going to be a weaker presence without him, that's for sure. Mitchell de Jong, though, giving himself a good account here in this session. Currently occupies 5th place as well, with Luke Bennett chasing him down. Currently see him on our screens now with Eamon Murphy in hot pursuit. I get the vibes that perhaps Eamon Murphy might just settle down a little bit here, just sort of follow Luke Bennett at this stage here, Lewis. At the end of the day, he's got to go for it later on, hasn't he, if he wants to try and challenge for a finals place.
Yeah, this is the thing, is like, I think it'll be a little bit patient. He does have Dara McCormack closing up to him. Did see the question in chat, is Eamon Murphy safe to go to Munich with his current position? No, kind of. Like, he would be close. If he finishes where he currently is, the 17 points would put him on 97. Our expected cut, our expected position in the points where we're expecting the that final points cut, predictions around about 95 at the moment. That's kind of where we're leaning towards. So he would be on 97, so he'd be just above that, but it is a prediction. It's not a guarantee. And if I'm Eamon Murphy, I would not be comfortable on 9-7. I'm sure, I mean, I was going to say I'm sure he knows that, but at the end of the day, he's sitting there in the race thinking, at the moment, I'm not going through to this final race, and that is the focus for him, so he needs to kind of get on with it. I would not be confident in his chances of progressing if he finishes where he currently is.
No, well, essentially what it is, I mean, we speak about the 95 being the general point of cut-off. Obviously, that is a threshold that can be manipulated depending on the results that come out of the semi-final. Not to mention the confirmation of the quarter-final results as well, including in that fact. And then, of course, you've got the likes of Mac Backham in the mix and various others as well. They're still in with a chance, but aren't featuring. Essentially, Eamon Murphy joins him in the pile of drivers that have essentially accrued what you might think are enough points off the face of the semi-final, but because it's effectively been taken out of their hands, should a result not necessarily go their way in the final and they can't do anything about it, it means essentially they've lost their ticket. They're not going to be going to Munich at that point. So you'd much rather place your own fate with your own hands, really, and sort of give yourself a chance, as opposed to letting others dictate as to whether you go through or not. And I'd imagine that's right on the mindset of Eamon Murphy, certainly as a competitor and as a driver.
Yeah, certainly so. Especially when, you know, one of those drivers we were looking at to be basically fighting for the same thing as him, being Thomas Tattler, having the issues that he's had in this race, dropping back to 12th to 11th. He's not going to be scoring the big points. Let's take a look at this whole incident then between Thomas Tattler and Niels Nyk. So a little bit of a hip check from Thomas Tattler, which is a bit naughty. This was ambitious. Tattler does turn straight back onto the apex, to be fair to him, but it was a big send-in from Nyk. At this point, I'd argue you're almost leaning towards racing incident territory. Thibaut Casamont's on the inside. Yeah, they can't really know what's going on. That whole thing on the start-finish straight was, let's call it what it is. You know, it was bad. It was just bad between the pair of them. Both of them will not be progressing further on this front. They're 10 seconds off of that all-important P6, and unfortunately for Thomas Tattler, his chances of progressing through to Munich have gone up with it.
Yeah, they certainly have, and I think he'll be very disappointed with that too. And we've just received a word here that Thomas Tattler has received a drive-through due to a corner cut, so it goes from what was already bad now to a worse scenario, and is now routed to P12 in 18.7 seconds off Niels Nyk's further up. So it literally can't get any worse for him. Obviously, he was looking for a major result to try and get himself into the summit, but at this point now, it's pretty much that his fate has been sealed here. Now it's all up to Eamon Murphy. Of course, Sebastian Job has driven a spectacular race, a race we'd almost expect from someone of his caliber here, Lewis. Obviously, now 7.5 tenths of a second clear of Moritz Lerner. Obviously, a final placement would give him all the chance in the world. He's coming into this one obviously requiring perhaps a little bit more out of the final races, but that's only because he started that much later in the championship. Yeah,
I mean, let's be honest, Job is a quality driver. For anyone who's not really followed the world of sim racing, you might not know too much about Job, but he's a quality driver, and so, you know, definitely one to keep an eye on throughout this event. And also, again, fingers crossed, if he gets through into Munich, see what he does there. He does need a good final, I will say that. He's only got about 40 points on the board, and so really, if he wants to progress, you know, bearing in mind that sort of that 95 expected cut, he needs to win the final race. He, at a bare minimum, needs a podium.
Yeah, absolutely. But if anyone could do it, he certainly can. And a win here will certainly go a long way. Despite the points not necessarily being decided off the back of this particular race win, it does put the mindset in place and certainly does strike, you know, should we say, an authority perspective in amongst him as a driver. Certainly here at Hockenheimring, where he certainly looks dialed in after an absolutely emphatic pole lap. That would send him 45 thousandths faster than that. Moritz Lerner in behind as well, who did hold onto that pole position spot for a good duration of that qualifying session. Marcel Chinchik, also another driver that has featured up in the top 3 of many a race and has been one of the consistent faces in that RHE camp, of course, alongside the likes of Yuri Toman and also to a degree Johan Jujovski as well. Remember, RHE in the fight for the team's championship alongside that of Team Redline as well. Of course, Luke Bennett represents them in this race and currently sits in the top 6 as well. As it stands, if you're RHE right now, you want Eamon Murphy to launch an attack on Bennett at this point, don't you, Lewis?
Yeah, for sure. At this point, this is the part of the race where things do calm down a little bit, and always in that final point, someone goes for it. We don't know exactly who it is. We don't know exactly which side this fight is going to come from, but there is a fight that will happen in this train. Someone will. Obviously, we know it'll most likely be in that 6th, 7th location, but like you say, other teams are at play, other things are at play. It means that there might be fights elsewhere that can bring some other fights into it. Looking backwards for Bennett, the important thing though for Bennett is that gap backwards to Murphy is quite large. And unfortunately, you know, when you talk of like one of the major things here with ESL R1, with the GT3s, with the racing around Hockenheimring, it's about that slipstream on the parabolica down towards the hairpin. Now, that slipstream is obviously less effective when the car ahead has slipstream to the car ahead, has slipstream to the car ahead, has slipstream to the car ahead, has slipstream to Moritz Lerner, who has slipstream to Sebastian Job, who probably doesn't really care too much about winning this race. So it all kind of comes down to whether Lerner goes for a fight, which I'm not sure he will. I think he is more than happy with 2nd place right now, and that he's not got a teammate further back in the train that he's kind of like thinking about, if I fight now, that will roll backwards and then maybe my teammate can get to it. At the moment, he just sat there being like, to be honest, not too bothered.
No, not at all. We're just watching now Eamon Murphy make his way around the stadium section. Of course, very shortly through Mobile 1 curve and now Sachs curve as well, very shortly, which he does undertake now before reaching Sud curve. We're here on lap 7 of 10. Soon be there, lap 8 of 10 as well. Still Sebastian Job leads the way, and very convincingly as well. Only though half a second back is Moritz Lerner, who's still in the mix with Marcel Chinchik. Equilateral gaps between that and the top 3, with James Baldwin touching that 0.8 of a second gap. Mitchell de Jong as well for Porsche Coanda, who's currently sat in 5th too. But Luke Bennett currently sat in 6th. Will be looking to try and hang on for dear life. Very conscious of the fact that there is still very much a team's championship in play, despite the driver situation in terms of getting to that summit, the all-important summit that all the drivers are looking to try and obtain. Naturally, the team's championship is still something vital that those individual teams will be hunting for, and it will mean a lot to some teams, certainly, to stamp their name as a permanent fixture, to be the very first team's champion here in ESL R1, the very first season that ESL have taken and embraced sim racing. It would mean a lot to the teams to put their name, the very first name, on that trophy.
Yeah, RAG's big advantage when it comes to drivers in this is going to be stamped out presently, because at the moment Thibaut Casmont, 9th position is all where he is, and alas, being one of the RAG drivers, being one of the drivers that they would probably need points at to overhaul the quite large points haul that Team Redline have over them. I think it's around 60 points, the advantage that Team Redline presently have. So needs to be a little bit of work from RAG in the next semi-final. Maybe, you know, they're hoping that one of the Team Redline drivers, being Luke Bennett and Kevin Siggy, don't make it all the way through to the final, and that might open up their chances once again. Who knows? There is a lot to play for in the next 3 races that we've got. Obviously, well, this one that we're coming up to close, and then the semi-final 2, and then the final itself. A lot to play for when it comes to the hunt for the team's championship, as well as those positions moving through the community. There's a lot going on, a lot of moving parts in this, and that is exactly why we love it. Right now, Eamon Murphy has Dara McCormack all over the rear end, but the important thing for him is it is a second large gap up to Bennett, and of course Murphy, if he drops his position, he's going to lose 2 very important points from 17 down to 15, which would move him down from 97 to that 95, that expected cut.
Yeah, and it might be in jeopardy now as well, because in comes Dara McCormack looking to obtain 7th place away. Nils Niox has received a slowdown, 10-second slowdown. Out wide now Murphy. Dara McCormack, easy as you like, up to 7th place, heading out of Spitz Curve now. Very shortly they'll make their way through the middle sector now, and a slowdown as well of 5 seconds to Thomas Tatler. Nils Niox, though, I would say, penalised the heaviest, 10 seconds against 5 seconds for Tatler.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I actually do kind of respect that from Rachel. They've not looked at like the incident as a whole. They've looked at the individual things that happen in it and been like, right, Niels, you've done this, you've done that, there's your penalty. Thomas, you've done this, you've done that, there's your penalty. Move on. You know, like you were both being silly. You were both doing silly things. Have your penalties. You're not going anywhere in this anyway. But it's more of like a slap over the wrist and being told off. There was no way they were going to close that gap anyway. It just is what it is. They'll be 11th and 12th as we head on to the final lap of this race. Has Dara McCormack got anything for Luke Bennett? This would be very, very big for McCormack if he can get to Bennett and get through. Obviously, the pair of these two, they're both going their way through into Munich anyway. They're looking for bragging rights over the day. They're looking for victories on today's event.
Yeah, very conscious of that turn one as well is Dara McCormack, obviously just keeping his eyes peeled up the line, obviously the same corner that would penalise him in qualifying, but trying to urge his car closer and closer to Luke Bennett, who is actually dropping away from Mitchell de Jong in 5th place as well. So Redline might be looking or feeling perhaps a little squeamish on this final lap as that Mercedes looks to get as close as it can to that rear wing of that Team Redline BMW. Heading through the next straight, you can just see they're late on the brakes. Dara McCormack, he's pushing and giving absolutely everything here to allow him the best opportunity possible to get himself into the top 6. And as they make their way through this next right now, he's going to look to try and unhook potentially any opportunity of Bennett securing that placement heading through to the final later on tonight as they now make their way out of this particular segment. Red Bull, or certainly the Mobile 1 curve coming up very shortly. Sachs curve after that. The stadium section beckons. Can McCormack take him right to the end?
Yeah, I think it might be a bit too late, but I'm concerned that BMW tyre for the Team Redline machine, I'm fearing the tyres might be going off ever so slightly. Maybe some overheating, maybe some perfect timing, who knows. Tell you someone whose BMW's tyres are not going off. G2 Esports, Sebastian Job, final sector for him, and he will be progressing his way through into the final again as he looks to get his way into Munich. He crosses the line in first, Moritz Lerner behind, Marcel Chinchik behind that, and then the trio of Baldwin, de Jong and Bennett does beat McCormack out across the line. McCormack will be a little frustrated with that, but to be fair, I think he's only got himself to blame. That run through T1 in qualifying, that was the big decider in all that.
And he was, and naturally now Sebastian Job giving himself a huge chance as well to get himself through to the major. I mean, a victory here in semi-final 1, while the points aren't necessarily decided at this point here, Lewis. Lots still up for question. We haven't yet made it to the final of this round just yet, but still, the mentality aspect has got to be a positive.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, this is why I was saying that it's kind of big for the likes of Bennett and McCormack to get their way through, because obviously those two already going through into the Summit Major. They're looking to win this round for the confidence. It is the same in the semi-finals. Taking a victory in the semi-finals versus the finals, it is a big confidence boost. Let's take a look though at highlights from the race and see how Sebastian Job took victory. Race down towards the first corner. Moritz Lerner had a little look down his inside. Marcel Chinchik and James Baldwin gave it a good go coming up towards turn 2 as they would race their way through. Chinchik to the outside. Lerner was just about able to hang on, and then the race down towards the second corner in the back of the pack. A look as to what happened to the Furia driver of Neva, just pinched a little bit in all of the mid pack. This was the big talking point through the race though, of contact between Thomas Tattler and Niels Nyox, not only through the penultimate corner, not only through the Sachs curve, but also through the final. Out wide they would go, and Thomas Tattler was sent off into the barrier, and unfortunately his chances to progress would go up with it. A dive down the inside late on in the race on Isaac Price from Dara McCormack, who'd work his way through into what was 7th position in this race, one short of Luke Bennett, who was on to the final lap of the race and was able to hang on. Sebastian Job was able to hang on to victory though, ahead of Moritz Lerner and Marcel Chinchik. Fantastic stuff from Sebastian Job, who's looking to work his way through. We do have Thomas Tattler with us. Talk to us about your emotions right now. You must be frustrated.
I just
well, I'll ask you again, just in case you didn't hear me on the first one on there. Talk to us about your emotions and how you're feeling right now.
I can hear you just fine. Can you hear me?
How are you feeling right now, Thomas?
Frustrated, obviously.
Well, I mean, let's talk about some of the positives from the season itself. You've had a lot of positives from the season, from the previous rounds. You've shown great pace. Focus a little bit more on that. What have you learned through the season?
I don't know. Learn to drive the car, maybe. Overall, it has been pretty shit. I've had some pace at some points, but yeah, very disappointing. And yeah, I just feel sorry for my team as well for not performing like I should.
Let's, again, refocusing on certain things. Let's look at the team itself. There have been positives from the team throughout the season. Yeah, I know there's some disappointment now, but team-wise, talk to us about representing such an important brand in the world of esports, and the positives of that moving through into the next season and into the future.
Yeah, I mean it's basically my dream to do this. But on days like this, it's tough. No matter what team I represent, I think the team is really good, and yeah, there's a lot of support, and my teammates are great. I hope Tommy can make it to the major, but yeah, overall just very disappointed at the moment. Don't really have words.
Well, obviously, again, very frustrated. I do get that. We'll let you get off and support the team, etc., and good luck in the future.
I'm in my element, it's evident that this level's to the game. All of those dark nights I got then, breaking my back to make it out, got me feeling like pain. I ain't never need your help, I know you wishing me well, a penny for your thoughts, but seeing no change. I snap for the sun like Diddy, the riches got a mad at something, I'm like Billy. I ain't never switch up, whole team with me, but known for my city like OAGZ. Fabulous, they tried to dabble in it, and they hate the fact that they may have to witness. You tryna aim for the top like this, and you're in your element with a fire like this, and they hoping you fall, and they praying you miss, but it's all in the risk. I got you with the switch, you know. I'm in the zone.
Man, oh man, I was literally just like dancing like this the whole time I was watching that announcement video for the major, and you read it yourselves as well. Free tickets. I'm super excited, and hopefully looking forward to see many of you there. As you did see on the screen, !ticket to find out some more about booking your free ticket for June 3rd and 4th. I'm super excited for it, but George, bringing it back down a level once again. That was quite clearly a little bit of a overwhelming. You could sense the frustration on the front of a lot of these drivers, not just the one that we've just spoken to. But talk to me a little bit more about moving on from here. Anything that really took you by surprise watching that race? Were you kept on the edge of your seat?
I was in many ways. I think obviously Sebastian Job was one of the major feel-good factors. Obviously now essentially helping himself in trying to achieve that slot for Munich at the summit. Obviously a shame for Thomas Tattler, obviously the way that went down. Obviously I hope that he can bounce back in the future, and obviously the team will look to pursue better results here on out. I think obviously now we've got to look forward. Obviously Eamon Murphy, he's going to be feeling a little uncomfortable as we move on through the night as well. It's out of his hands now at this point, Jasmine. We'll have to wait and see what tonight brings.
Do you think this ends up changing the way that they ultimately start racing moving forward from here as well, knowing that your teammate is out for the count? Do you think that kind of impacts them moving forward as well?
Well, it's a pressure cooker scenario. It always is, especially in sim racing and in competitive nature. I mean, we can have a look at the highlights of the start as well. I mean, going back, I mean, it all pretty much kicked off from this point. If obviously we see Sebastian Job getting a super launch as well. So did Moritz Lerner to a certain degree. He obviously perhaps favoured his chance heading through turn one, but just immediately shut the door, Sebastian Job. And that is a true professional at work who knows very much when impending danger is coming. He shut the door, and then in came James Baldwin and also Marcel Chinchik in with a chance of usurping, but a very late move indeed there from Thomas Tattler. I felt bad for the Furia car. That was the incident that led to the Furia car going to the very back. Didn't really help them at all. And of course, Nils Niox was right in the midst of this fight as well. This is where sort of the chaos started brewing. Of course, you can see there Tattler, who's got the upper hand on the exit, then coming through the latter sector of the stadium section where it looked like Niox might have had the upper hand. He did go up the inside very aggressively. They came together, and Niox trying to fight back heading through the latter sector. They essentially muscled, they banged shoulders, they ran out wide. Tattler came straight back on, obviously conscious about losing places, and then out onto the grass and once again colliding. And obviously, as soon as you're out there with very little traction, it makes life a lot harder. And essentially, that was the crescendo that ended Thomas Tattler's journey here for the spring season.
Now, we saw some pretty big fights, as you did mention as well. Do you think it is because all of these drivers are well aware that this is a last-ditch attempt as well? Because it was pretty intense.
Yeah, I think definitely the top 6 was definitely on the minds of many, and it's like we said before, up to this point, everything has been about getting into the top 6, progressing as far as you can, obtaining as many points as you can. Of course, looking further to the final in Munich, obviously we'll take a look at the result of this race as well, folks, just to give you guys some insight at home. Of course, Sebastian Job confirmed the race winner, but it just goes to show we saw Dara McCormack trying to knock at that wood, still trying to get himself into the top 6. Luke Bennett getting that all-important top 6 as well. That gives Redline a huge chance against RAG of securing their top spot in terms of the team's championship as well. So it's still very much on the mindset of that top 6. But like you said earlier on, as soon as we hit the summit in Munich, it's then all about the prize money. And that's when you'll see the driver's mentality change.
Well, I think from my perspective in particular, I know Lewis had Luke Bennett winning out the entire thing. How are you thinking his prediction is shaping up so far? Were you anticipating a bit more fight coming out from the side of Luke Bennett?
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised he didn't get as much in the public poll. I thought he had a great chance. And, you know, Luke Bennett is also a final winner, of course, more than one occasion here this season. So you've got to give him a lot of credit. Naturally, he's got it all to do again, though. And naturally, Redline will be hoping that he can pull off a big result in their fight against RAG.
Yeah, well, checking in once again with our tier list of drivers that we have in contention for the major as well. Things are shaping up so far pretty darn good, considering that everybody is still in contention. There's still, you know, nobody is really out for the count as well. Is there anyone, I'm putting you on the spot here now, George, prepare yourself, brace yourself.
So,
is there
I'm ready.
anyone
I'm ready.
that you think isn't going to be able to do it? Give me a prediction. I've asked you for predictions of who you think is going to do particularly well. Is there anyone, considering their previous results, that you think is really going to struggle?
Well, I think certainly if you're Thomas Tatler right now and Eamon Murphy, it's going to be extremely tricky. And naturally, they've put themselves on the back foot a little bit, obviously not progressing to that final. While mathematically, everything is still in the question mark segment right now, I would say just giving off what we've already seen, the pressure's really on them now, and there's nothing more they can do. They've got to sit back and hope that things go in their favour now. Same for Matt Backham as well.
Yeah, well, I think for the side of Team Redline, it's definitely going to be all hands on deck, full focus for a lot of their drivers as well. I'm certainly excited to see how our semi-final 2 is going to end up shaping up. But before we do that, let's check in with how the quarterfinals went.
Out on the start-finish line, it was Marcel Chinchik on pole position, taking and holding the race lead down towards the first corner. Sebastian Job under a bit of pressure from Dara McCormack behind. Defensive line being taken from Dane Warren over Enzo Benito, who was looking down the inside, but it was Patrick Holtzman absolutely steamrolling his way in. 3 wide, out onto the parabolica, the inside line being taken from Thomas Tatler, and then the dives down the inside. It was Dane Warren that was spun round by Enzo Benito, with Yarshall taking the inside line, battling over 7th position and losing touch of the top 6. Enzo Benito, he would be focused on trying to progress into the semi-finals. This would not help. He'd be spun over onto the grass. Marcel Chinchik would come across the line for RAG as they would try and hunt down our team's championship leaders in Team Redline. And on to quarter-final 2 then, where Luke Bennett had pole position. However, it was a jump start from 3rd position. Jack Keithley, who'd done a fantastic job in qualifying, and it was all thrown into the bin immediately. Thibaut Casabon well inside the top 6, also trying to fight his way through into his first semi-final appearance. Out wide was Johan Harth trying to make his way past Mitchell de Jong. Johan Harth being pushed out wide a little bit by Victor Veloso and Bunner House, who were to his inside, and so they were battling over that final transfer spot. Bixrud desperate to hang on. Mitchell de Jong desperate to fight his way through. Losing out points here would be a devastating consequence. Oscar Bixrud then up into 6th. The two of those two would switch around and Mitchell de Jong would move inside the top 6. Victor Veloso and Bunner House having a bit of a battle for 8th position. Out wide Veloso would go and the position switch would happen. Luke Bennett would take victory though from Eamon Murphy and Moritz Lerner.
Now, just to set the record straight for the folks at home, you might have felt like you were rewinding time a little bit. Don't worry, we're going to go through the drivers you need to watch for the upcoming semi-final number 2, as the quarterfinals you just saw were from 1 and 2. Now, talk to me about the ones we need to be keeping an eye on here, George.
Yes, Jasmine, why not indeed? We got Kaiki Oliveira, Tommy Osgaard, as well as Yuri Kazdorp, Isaac Price, and Graham Carroll. Now, certainly as you can see from the progression charts, Isaac Price, despite having a very positive start of the season, he has since seen a decline. You'd be looking for an upward curve in his fortunes. Currently sits position 30 in the championship as well. Yuri Kazdorp just ahead of him, separated by a mere 4 points. Now, Kaiki Oliveira, while he is, should we say, right in the mix with a great chance, obviously, of getting through, he's in that top 24. The points gap still suggests there is still a deficit to reach. And as well, Tommy Osgaard, who is also in the mix, he'll look to try and grind out a positive result. The head-to-head is between this of Isaac Price and Yuri Kazdorp. You can see there 12th is required for Yuri Kazdorp in the final to get to the major, 11th for Isaac Price. Both of them share 5 top 6 finishes with 76 points going the way of Kazdorp, 72 to Price. So no matter which way you look at it, it is still very, very close. Naturally, a lot of personnel in the mix on this one. And again, this could influence what happens in terms of the other prospects of getting into the major summit as well. There is just so much up in the air and everything could be decided on this race.
Now, do you think that this has been the most hectic round we have seen so far for ESL R1? Because I feel like it kind of is.
I think it's demanding the drivers to sort of ask different questions as opposed to what they have done leading up to this point. Obviously, everything has just been about getting through, getting as high as you can. Very rarely do drivers want to put themselves at risk. Naturally, they are very much aware that it is stewarded. There's live stewarding going on here in this championship, as well as post-stewarding as well. And they don't want to be hindered at all, and neither does their team. But here is the semi-final grid order, and it is a very exciting one at that. Plenty of these drivers also in the mix, trying to fight their way to get into the top 24. And just look at that list below. Kaiki Oliveira, Tommy Osgaard, not to mention Yuri Kazdorp, Isaac Price, Graham Carroll, all looking to get themselves through. Naturally, if you look at Jeffrey Rietveld upwards, all of them have 100 points plus. They've essentially got themselves a ticket stamped, but it's going to be fascinating. You've got 5 drivers there, all looking for a spot at the major.
Now, for the side of Kevin Siggy and Jeffrey Rietveld, obviously being drivers for the side of Team Redline, do you think there's going to be an added level of pressure, intensity for them, knowing that they are essentially a driver down when it comes to facing off versus RHG in that team championship?
Yeah, I mean, I'll throw it back. I mean, we've had certainly moments in the past where RHG have had cars in 6th and 7th. I mean, it happened a couple of times. We saw the likes of Chinchik and Johan Jujovski struggling to make the right decisions in terms of, okay, we're not going to get 2 RHG drivers in the mix. Who goes in, who goes out? You know, there is a lot of that at play. Naturally now, I think, while we're at the very sensitive point now in terms of the team championship, especially between RHG and Team Redline, because they're the 2 contesting teams, they might be forced to make a few decisions naturally just to support, to make sure that their team goes through. But for the other drivers that are in the fight, they're fighting essentially a different war here. There are 2 very different title fights going on here. This could be a massive crescendo here tonight in race 2, and I can't wait to see it.
I'm certainly excited to see it as well. But for the folks at home, once again, it is straw poll time. I want to hear your predictions because, as we've established, Lewis's are absolutely a no-go. George, yours are questionable as well. But
I nearly got there.
Nearly is not good enough. As we did establish already, diamonds are formed under pressure, and quite clearly, Lewis McGlade is certainly no diamond. How do you think his prediction's going to shape up for semi-final number 2? Get in here, Lewis. Get in here.
I can feel his anger from here. Oh, dearie me. Lewis, how are you?
Oh, my goodness. Oh, I feel like Thomas Tatler at the moment. I'm fuming.
Oh.
I'm absolutely fuming. No, that was brutal. That was harsh. If that is the case, if the commentator's curse does exist, I'm really sorry to Joshua Rogers because I think he's going to win semi-final 2. Just throwing that one out there.
Ouch. Okay. Well, I tell you what, that is rough, isn't it? I'm going to throw Joni Tormala in this one.
Oh, poor guy.
Okay. All right,
Yeah.
I'm curious to see whether or not the chat agrees with you, though. So, yeah, another reminder for the folks at home. Agree, disagree, let us know in the chat. Send in your own poll as well. And also, remember to tag us at ESL_R1 across all social media. And remember to use the hashtag ESLR1 as well. Or if you're feeling a little bit lazy, go ahead and type !social in the chat as well. Gents, do we think we're going to see another hectic semi-final? Yes or no?
Yeah.
I kind of want to see it.
I think this
I'm
one's
here
going to
for
be
it.
hectic. I think so.
Okay. All right. Do we think we're going to see some crashes, perhaps? I feel like
I
I'm
think
doing
we're
like
gonna
the
see crashes
virtual
again.
bingo.
Crash
I'm
bingo.
doing like the bingo.
No,
yeah.
When I say crescendo, I mean crescendo. You've got 5 cars that I alluded to. 5 drivers, everybody, all looking to get through to the major in the summit. I can't wait. It's going to be lethal.
And my final thing as well, out of the drivers that we have, the LAN environment, we've already seen it from the driver progression so far. We've had drivers performing exceptionally well when we kick things off with that LAN event to kick things off. But do we think that progression is going to peak once again once we get to the major, or do we think it's pretty much consistency from here on out?
Well, I think consistency. What about you, George?
Okay.
I'd say consistency. I think those in the top end that have certainly progressed already. I think consistency is the utmost importance. But naturally, we'll have to wait and see. Everything's a question mark up until we reach the summit.
Well, I think there's only one way to find out whether consistency is very much going to be the case for our semi-final 2. It's over to the 2 of you.
Well, thank you, Jasmine. Onwards and upwards after what we can probably say was a controversial first semi-final. But we love controversy here in racing. It does happen from time to time. We've got something that could prove to be a pressure cooker as well here in race 2 of the semi-final. And I'm looking forward to it, Lewis. Don't know about you, but I think we could be on the precipice of yet more drama.
Oh yeah, I think so. Like I said, there's a lot of drivers that are in that are below the line at the moment. Again, we've hovered it around being around about 95 points. The idea of that, it's kind of in that area. It could be going down a little bit courtesy of Tatler's issue, but somewhere in that sort of 90 to 95 points is where these drivers are aiming for. Those below it, they need to get a good qualifying here, and there are a few in this qualifying session that need to do it.
Trouble afoot, obviously, Marko Pejic, a man who obviously went on to be a winner, of course, a finalist winner as well to boot, and the very first one for Mercedes AMG. Of course, not the first one to do it in a Mercedes, though, because Dara McCormack achieved that feat this season and has done it twice. But Pejic now making his way around the Curva Parabolica once again, this time at the Hockenheimring, setting a 20.249 immediately in this sector. We'll have to wait and see whether that can turn itself into a great lap for him, obviously making his way around Spitz Curve now. Very, very tight hairpin section as he now puts the power down. Yet again, we'll need to extrapolate a decent Sector 2 and decent Sector 3 run. But Pejic has been one of those guys that's been progressing through the season. I think that has been Mercedes' story, really, from the word go, Lewis.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've got stronger and stronger. That round that they obviously won in the hands of Marko Pejic was a 1-2. James Baldwin was right behind. They are a team that's getting stronger, that feel it, and Pejic is the best total example of that. We'll talk a little bit about his sectors, though. First sector, it's okay. It's about a 10th off where we'd really want it. Second sector's decent, which, especially considering the Mercedes, that's actually very impressive. One more left to go, and again, he's aiming for somewhere in the low 136s, maybe even 135 if he's lucky.
Yeah, absolutely. Now around the final corner here at Sud Curve, and then we'll streak down through towards the start-finish line. There is Pejic in the bottom left of your screen as he crosses that said line, 136.048. Now, not necessarily the best we've seen, but it's good, and certainly it might yet deliver a positive result. Let's wait and see, because we've got Kaiki Oliveira coming up next.
Yeah, it was slightly slower than his teammates' lap in the previous semi-final. Baldwin qualified in 4th place with a time that was a little bit closer, but it would be the same position for Pejic in this. Let's see what Kaiki Oliveira can do. He has been, in my opinion, one of the most impressive drivers to the online season. He crossed the line only good enough for second, dropping a little bit in that second sector, but Oliveira has been fantastic this season. So's Isaac Price, and so's Yoni Turmler and that lot. They've all improved, and everyone's improved. It's madness.
Yeah, one of G2's best rounds as well heading into this one. Of course, Kaiki Oliveira now 22,000 slower than Marko Pejic in the mix. Isaac Price looking to try and deliver this time for G2 as he now heads up towards the line. And G2 will have the benefit of 2 drivers here in this race too. Just over a 10th out though for Isaac Price. I think he'll be a little disappointed. You see Marko Pejic in the top right, but here come, well, certainly the tenacious Yuri Toman, who has been brilliant throughout this championship.
Yeah, not actually looking great at the moment. I think he's tracking a little bit slower than Isaac Price as he heads into the final sector. Of course, one of those drivers that's fighting for those higher up positions in the championship. He's currently 4th in the Drivers' Championship. He comes out across the line and he'll set himself 4th place, 2 tenths off. I did think the first and second sector weren't looking great, so Payet remains in the top right of our screen. He remains on the provisional pole position.
Yeah, and this throws a massive curveball in the sense that we are obviously fighting it out for the team's championship. Tommy Usgaard having a really tough first sector, and it's not looking ideal currently either as the Norwegian makes his way through the final segment of this circuit. He's going to be heading through Sud Curve now and down the home straight before enlisting his lap time. But this looks like it's going to be slower than Tomans as he now makes his way up towards the line. Let's wait and see. Is it enough to stay in proximity? 1.5 seconds. I do wonder if there was a slowdown there somewhere. At least, though, it might not have been, but still 1.5 seconds off the pace is not ideal.
No, I think he had a slowdown in the first corner. I think that's where he lost pretty much the entirety of that time. RHG having a lot of pressure on their shoulders then with Yuri Toman's slightly average lap time. What can Erhan Yovski do across the line? It's a really good second sector. He's so wide through the final corner. Heads up towards the line. Is it good enough? It's good enough for 3rd, so a pretty handy lap time. Not enough to challenge Payet for pole position, but not a million miles away.
Yeah, Joshua Rogers up next as well, a man that would win 2 finals, of course, this season here in the spring series here, and it's certainly looking like this one could be a fiery first sector. Looking okay in the first sector, middle sector perhaps a little indifferent, but still not bad. Needs a big 3rd sector to try and add a little bit more fuel to the fire. That could be his run here at Hockenheim, 4th fastest, and look at that, the top 4 within 40 thousandths of a second. That is sensational.
Shows how good his final sector was, because his middle sector was distinctly average. Yuri Kasdorp, though, one of those drivers that's right in the zone to move his way through. He needs a good result here. He needs to realistically move through into the final. Kasdorp into the final sector. It's an average first sector. It's a really quite tidy second sector, though, as he comes up towards the line. Is it good enough for pole? The answer is not quite once again, and that 1/10 off margin just behind. You can see the pressure and the feelings that's mounting on Payet. He is looking pretty nervy in the top right of our screen.
He certainly does. He has every right to be. 56 thousandths now in between the top 5. That is incredible. In comes Kevin Siggy now as part of the Redline contingent, looking to take the team's championship. Of course, here tonight, Siggy now heading up towards the line. He's got Jeffrey Reerveld, his teammate, coming later on as well. Siggy, P7, outside of a 1/10 of a second, and I think he's a little disappointed, a little disgruntled, because he's got an RAG of Erhan Yovski ahead of him, but he is crucially ahead of Yuri Toman. This is a very interesting fight we have got here for the title here, Lewis.
Yeah, certainly so. Graham Carroll comes through into this final sector. We have not seen Graham Carroll in the semi-finals since round 3 of the championship. We've only seen him in semi-finals twice. Let's see if he can do something special here. First sector's decent, second sector's average. That is expected for the Mercedes into the final sector. He goes across the line, and is he good enough to get himself in that 10th sort of margin? It's good enough for 8th. 10.5 off of his teammate. 2 more drivers left to go in this session. First of those is Jeffrey Rietveld.
Yeah, of course, Jeffrey Rietveld looking to try and go perhaps higher than Kevin Siggy. Obviously, he's 7th fastest, the best for Siggy. The fact that we have got 7th place, just outside the 10th of a second off, is incredible. But now Rietveld looking to add his name to the top end as well. In comes now Jeffrey Rietveld, and he will go 8th fastest. Not convincing, to say the least. Doesn't even go higher than Kevin Siggy. Redline sharing P7 and P8 in this timing tower.
Yeah, it's a slight shade off of almost being a disaster for Team Redline. Both drivers at the moment outside of the cutoff, inside that top 6. Yoni Tormula, though, look at that first sector, a 20.0. That is beyond mega. Yes, I know he's lost time in the second sector. This could be phenomenal from the G2 Esports driver as he crosses the line. Good enough for 4th position. That means 6 drivers, the top 6, separated by 0.05 of a second. Madness.
I was preparing to gloat at Jasmine when he went fastest, but no, not this time. It will be Marco Pajic, everybody, who goes to the top. But just look at those gaps as well. Tormula adding himself within that half, or should we say within the same 10th of a second. And here is the grid for semi-final 2 as powered by VRS as well, folks. Tommy Usgaard at the back, alongside that of Yuri Toman of RAG. They've got an uphill climb, certainly, if they want to try and get themselves in the mix. Graham Carroll as well in the row above, alongside that of Jeffrey Rietveld for Team Redline. His teammate Kevin Siggy lines up alongside Isaac Price for G2 Esports, with Yuri Kazdorp and Mouse partnering Joshua Rogers on the same row of the grid as well for Porsche Coanda. We got Joni Tormela in G2 as well, second row alongside that of Erhan Yujovski, who's in third place, with Kaiki Oliveira on the front row for Team Fury. An impressive performance here once again with Marko Pejic, a prior finalist winner. He is on pole, ready for the start of this race here tonight. That is your man, your pole sitter. It's Marko Pejic and Mercedes, the man who's obviously already tasted finalist gold here as well, and is looking now to do the same thing again after clinching pole here in this semi-final too. And he could not get off to a better start. But Kaiki Oliveira, you spoke about him earlier on as well, Lewis. Another fantastic display.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, Kaiki Oliveira, including the 7 points, the bare minimum that he's getting from this race, he's on 94 points. So he is almost safe, almost safe. And to be fair, I've got to say that he and the Furia team have really earned that, because they've gone from being... They were fine in the back in Katowice. They were fine. And that sounds harsh, and it kind of is harsh, but it shows how well they have moved on in the online rounds. They have been phenomenal.
You certainly have. And why don't we take a look at your prediction results as well, folks? Obviously, the poll have been very busy. Kevin Siggy getting the popular vote, 26.92. Keep them coming, folks. Of course, Joshua Rogers, of course, prior a winner as well, twice a finalist winner, 19.23%. Tommy Usgaard getting a little bit of support as well, alongside that, Jeffrey Rierfeld and Yuri Kazdorp and Isaac Price, all sharing 11.54%. Isaac Price there at the bottom of those. Kaiki Oliveira, he had 3.85% of the votes alongside Graham Carroll. They share the same. No support, though, for Yuri Toman at all, or Erhan Yujovski here. RAG haven't got a lot of fans here tonight.
Or Pejic. He started from pole position, 0% on that.
Yeah.
Sort yourselves out in chat. Unacceptable.
Yeah, I think Jasmine ought to have a word with you lot in the chat. I think, yeah, we're the ones who obviously get it in the neck every time. It's about you guys at home got the same treatment as we're now waiting to go racing here at Hockenheimring. Hey, but look, we go back to it as well. This fight, the bottom 5, all in proximity, looking to try and get them placement in the major as well, Lewis. How integral is this race? Because I'll be honest, the grid doesn't necessarily show any distinct patterns, but what I can say is this, is that they're all going to be certainly smashing it out on this circuit.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this as an ex-moderate competitor, definitely nothing on this level. I'm glad I'm not on this grid in that kind of zone, fighting for the final, for my position to transfer into Munich, because the level of pressure on drivers like this driver, Yuri Kazdorp, the pressure on his shoulders, Tommy Usgaard as well, he's in that kind of zone, down 23rd in the championship. He can progress if he gets a decent result in here. There is so much pressure on everyone's shoulders. People live for it. People love it. Some people, this is where they find their very best selves.
They certainly do. Now all the cars lined up now as the lights go red, and all very shortly 5 lights certainly are lit, and it's pedal to the metal, and it is go, 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 go. Marko Pejic getting a very nice launch indeed. Kaiki Oliveira immediately tracking in behind the Mercedes as well as the cars make their way through turn 1. There's Joshua Rogers also looking to try and get himself into the mix. The G2 Esports car. There you see Joni Tormela as well in the mix. Rogers immediately going down the inside, pouncing through now as they make their way through turns 2 and turns 3 as well. Heading out to Einfahrt Parabolica now, down through the in-swinger, through the left-hander, and still Joshua Rogers unable to usurp that at all of Joni Tormela. Holds on to 4th place, but entering now the fray, the mouse car of Yuri Kazdorp now. We got 3 wide, very nearly 4 cars now, heading through in towards Spitz Curve. They run in tandem, they're looking for space, they're battling, they're banging, they're clanging as they head through now, down through towards the middle sector. Still though, it is Pejic on top as Kazdorp goes wheel to wheel with Joshua Rogers.
Yeah, this is getting dicey as they head into the arena section. Let's see Rogers down the inside, fending off Kazdorp, who then has a trio of BMWs. The first of those being Isaac Price, Kevin Siggy getting to the inside. This could be a big disaster for Redline, though, who presently have 2 cars outside of that cut-off point for the team's championship. This could be mega for RAG, who still have Erhan Yujovski inside that top 6. A dive to the inside from Siggy is cut off by Isaac Price, who's just able to fend off this train. A big slip of oversteer in the background from Graham Carroll, who's just able to keep Yuri Toman at bay as they just about survive the first lap.
Yeah, lap 1 of 10 coming to an end. It's now onwards and upwards to lap 2. Isaac Price currently holding on to 7th. Yuri Kazdorp getting that all-important 6th place and pressuring for 5th place as well. Of course, Joshua Rogers ahead of him, who's twice a finalist winner. Of course, alluded to that prior as well. His place is pretty much solidified. Yanni Tormler also in the mix, is now coming out wide immediately. We have the 2 BMWs coming together. That, of course, being that of Isaac Price, as well as Kevin Siggy, the fans' favourite, who's now looking to try and whittle his way through. Of course, conscious of the fact that R8G are in this mix as well. They've got Erhan Yovski up into 3rd place. Redline looking to make the big moves. They've got 2 cars in the mix to this fight, with a sister BMW, not a sister team though, because G2 obviously trying to land points of their own here, as Isaac Price looks to hold on to the outside line, heading at a Spitz curve. Still Rietveld coming straight back at him here as they remain still wheel to wheel, powering through the middle sector, and now Rietveld takes that 7th place. It was a double attack, and now enter Kevin Siggy into the mix as well, as they both look to move up places. I tell you what, Price is in trouble here. He's essentially outnumbered in this fight between G2 BMWs and Redline BMWs.
This is, yeah, very sketchy indeed. 1.5 seconds off of now the top 6. That is massive for Team Redline, who have a lot of work to do now in this race. Pajic, Oliveira, Yovski, Tormler, Rogers and Kazdorp will be the 6 to move through if Redline don't do something about this. Jeff Rietveld ahead of that. But I've got to say, Jeff Rietveld's his record in semi-finals, to be brutally honest, isn't great. We always have said this before, that Rietveld, you know, is his incredible driver. He's so consistent, he's so this, he's so that. He's only moved through into 1 final in the entirety of ESL R1. It was last round, and he moved through with a 6th place finish. Could he do it in back-to-back rounds? Well, he'll be desperate to do so. Less so for the overall standings, more so for the team's championship, which Team Redline are desperately trying to hang on to.
Yeah, and how key is it that they can get both Rietveld and Siggy through? Because at this point, they're going to be losing 2 cars here. I mean, I appreciate that Toman is down in 11th place, but they've got Yovski here at this point. Lewis, there's a big chance that they can still score some major points when we race in the final later on, should it remain like this.
Yeah, let's see how things unfold. There's still plenty of time in this race, still plenty of kilometres to be navigated, as Isaac Price seeming to not really have the speed of Rietveld, because like, he's dropped off half a second. I know it didn't, you know, that's not crazy, but like, off the hairpin, he didn't look quite as fast. Didn't look quite as fast through the 2nd sector. Let's see if that gap grows through here. He's obviously dealing with the pressure of Kevin Siggy, the Slovenian, all over the rear end of him. Graham Carroll also, having known and commentated on Graham Carroll a few times, I know for a fact he will not sit behind Kevin Siggy and wait for his opportunity. If he gets there, he will go for a move. He will absolutely 110% try, as you kind of should when you're outside of the top 6. Is that going to cost them too much time? I am fearing for anyone outside the top 6 at the moment, because when we see gaps like that, these drivers are all of the same pace. We saw that in qualifying. They're all of the same level, all of the same speed. 1 second is a big gap to close down.
Yeah, and obviously you're outside of the slipstream at that point, makes it all the more challenging to close on your competitor, especially, you know, if we look at this now, Rietveld, who's now just barely getting himself within the same second of Yuri Kazdorp. Kazdorp does have the benefit of Joshua Rogers ahead of him, for example, as well. We're running on board with Graham Carroll. He's also in the mix of trying to get points to essentially guide him to the major as well, and has got quite a chunk to obviously reclaim. He's obviously been representing now Mercedes right through since the start at Katowice, and a very talented driver in his own right as well, as they make their way down through towards Spitz curve yet again. Of course, in P10 he has a little look here on Kevin Siggy, bored of waiting. He makes the move. They make contact now as they head out of Spitz curve, and this opens the door for Yuri Toman, who might want to try and take his chance, because he will need to try and pursue every position he can to maximise his points offering. He needs to get himself ahead of Kevin Siggy, who's right ahead of him, who goes for the switchback again on Graham Carroll as well. They're on wheel to wheel through the middle sector still, and Siggy once again not able to usurp Graham Carroll, who has his number, heading out of the 1st sector and now heading through towards the stadium section. Now Siggy needs to stop putting the pressure on. He cannot remain this far down for too much longer at the risk of being usurped again by Yuri Toman.
Yeah, and obviously Toman, being an R8G driver, are desperate to take at least a few points off of Team Redline here, which you can do so with a move on Kevin Siggy. It does seem as though Toman's been struggling for speed a little bit around Hockenheim, at least based on the semi-final we're watching here. The quarterfinals actually did pretty well, so you know, we'll ignore that one. But right now, he stood at the back of Kevin Siggy, thinking this is going to be a big move for the championship, for the team's championship, if I can get it. I mean, Toman, Siggy, they're progressing at the moment to Munich anyway, so it is literally just about the team's champion for them, which obviously, as we've said before, ends after this round. For some drivers around them, the likes of Graham Carroll, Isaac Price, Yuri Kazdorp, in that kind of margin, Tommy Usgaard as well to some degree, these drivers are not automatically progressed. They are not going through right now. Tommy Usgaard is just about in that final projected position. Let's see if he can make a move here as Yuri Toman's going to try and get one done on Kevin Siggy into the hairpin.
He certainly is now. Toman wheel to wheel now with Kevin Siggy. Now these two, of course, the two antagonists and protagonists in the fight, obviously between that of RHG and Team Redline. There's Tommy Usgaard, who's got his own championship to be concerned about as well, obviously looking to try and get himself through to the major. And P12 certainly here now as they rub shoulders. He's got the best view in the house. Maybe make it 3 wide. No, wouldn't advise it though as they go side by side again. Toman going deep, and that opens the door here for Tommy Usgaard. You can just see the verbal coming out there of Yuri Toman. He is not happy one bit, Lewis.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure as to whether that was on Siggy's shoulders or on Toman's. They both kind of came together. It looked a little bit audacious from Toman to have sent it in there, but he might have been pinched quite a touch from Kevin Siggy. All we do know is that from all of that, it's an extra few points swing for Tommy Usgaard, points that he could need at the moment with the extra points he's getting from this race. I do believe he will be on 92 points, so not comfortable. Let's just let's put it that way. He would not be in an ideal spot, especially with a few drivers much lower down in the championship, the likes of Yuri Kazdorp, the likes of Sebastian Job. Of course, those could be the drivers that end up knocking you out overall, as Yuri Toman's going to once again look to get past Kevin Siggy here. This would be a switch for a couple of points if Toman can get through extra towards RAG, whilst also taking a couple of points off of Team Redline. Could be a very big move for what I fear now for Team Redline and RAG could be a very tight championship coming down into that final race.
Yeah, because we can't forget, of course, now as they run side by side again, and this time Toman has a nose in front before even reaching Spitz curve, but he does have the inside here. Kevin Siggy, who immediately makes contact here with Tommy Usgaard, and that is certainly going to open the door for Yuri Toman, but unfortunately I think his momentum was slightly taken away in that incident, and now Toman has got to try and regain at least a little bit of delta to bring himself back in proximity. He is within half a second, but still at this point would rather be at least closer to have a chance of taking them both. There's Yuri Kazdorp, who's currently very close to Joshua Rogers as well. He's in the top 6. If it stays like this, he goes through to the final, and he's on a charge, obviously, to try and claim points so he can conserve his placement here in the Munich Summit as well. So plenty of names in the mix. And obviously now as we whittle the laps downwards and downwards, obviously we're lap 6 of 10, soon to be lap 7 of 10, still Page commanding that lead right now. Leads the way with Kaiki Oliveira having yet another dazzling race there in second. Erhan Yovski in the mix too, with Joni Tormela also having a spectacular drive. G2 would probably rather have 2 cars in there as well, because Isaac Price currently sits in 8th, just outside that of Jeffrey Rietveld, but crucially that gap now very nearly springing outwards to a second, with Graham Carroll looking like the main danger against Price's charge here.
Yeah, Page checking out a little bit from Kaiki Oliveira. Erhan Yovski behind. The gaps between this lot not really growing too much, which, again, they'll be more than happy with. At the moment they're going through, all things are good. Kazdorp, all he is hoping for right now is not about, oh, I hope Rogers makes a mistake and gets out of my way or whatever, and yeah, maybe I can get an X position and secure myself even further. It's, can this train keep this speed up, please? Because if this speed keeps going, Rietveld doesn't have a chance in closing down that time, but the moment they start fighting, the moment anyone in that train makes a mistake, he might be the one that pays the price for it. Speaking of prices and speaking of some being paid, Graham Carroll's got his way past Isaac Price. 8th position at the moment for the Mercedes driver, and the GT Esports man at the moment 9th position, 3/10 off. Every single point could be very, very important at this phase as Kevin Siggy and Yuri Toman continue their fight for positions we would not normally expect the fight over.
No, not at all. Generally, we'd expect to see them towards the higher end. Obviously, Toman has been one of the one of the big stories this season. I mean, what I find fascinating, Lewis, is the fact that despite their brilliance, despite them being in the fight for this team's title, they haven't had a single driver win a final throughout the entire rounds that we have had this season. Are they the best performing team not to win a final? I think they are, aren't they?
Oh yeah, I don't think there's any doubt in that at all. They've been absolutely fantastic when it comes to like their consistency and such. And it's not just like one or two drivers; it's the whole team. They've been fantastic. It's why they're fighting for the team's championship. You know, just because you win a final, though, just because one of your drivers wins a final, though, does not mean that you're going to go on to win the team's championship. We've had a lot of final winners, of course. But like even look at the two teams that are fighting for it. You know, they realistically, well, they've had one win because Luke Bennett's the only one that's won, right?
Yeah, absolutely right indeed for Team Redline. But naturally, there's a big plethora of points there as Yuri Toman dazzling there with the switchback heading out of Spitz Curve. And again, they run wheel to wheel, gets ahead of Kevin Siggy. This battle is absolutely fantastic to watch. These two have been going at it now for quite some time. Back down the inside now, Kevin Siggy, as they run wheel to wheel again, making contact still, as once again Toman, again getting all verbal here with Siggy, coming side by side. What a fight this is between two of the greats of this championship. Siggy as well, who has been a tenacious sim racer for quite some time, as is Toman in this title race, as now we're seeing them come toe-to-toe again. This speaks volumes about the fight that we're witnessing between two great teams with two great legacies when it comes to sim racing. And now RAG with one up essentially over Kevin Siggy here, with Toman holding on to that 11th place. They've got Erhan Yujovski currently sat in third, and crucially enough, Redline don't have a single driver currently going through to the final here in this semi-final.
Yeah, of course, you know, Redline, they have got Luke Bennett, who moved through in the previous semi-final, but in this one here, where they were looking to have two moving through, they are having zero moving through at the moment. Penultimate lap of the race, and that means that, that they're timed into the hairpin. Those opportunities to make those moves are fading, but I've got to say, Graham Carroll is the one that's actually closing up towards Rietveld, and so the pressure's more building on Rietveld's shoulders. He might drop an extra position, which would, again, be points in the championship race. It would be points that Redline would be losing over RHG. It is a big, big deal. I'm not sure Graham Carroll's got the speed to get up to Yuri Kastorp right now, but Yuri Kastorp sure hopes that Graham Carroll's got the speed to get to Rietveld and start fighting, because that would almost certainly guarantee Kastorp's position moving through into what would be his second final visit in ESL R1.
Yeah, absolutely right indeed. They come through the middle sector now here on lap 9 of 10. We're currently riding on board here with Graham Carroll. As you so rightly say, getting closer and closer to the back of Rietveld, and Rietveld now dropping to 1.2 seconds. That delta is cascading outwards now, and Kastorp is certainly now marshalling an unassailable advantage over that BMW sat in 7th place. And Redline now, the job being made that much harder as time progresses. Obviously the final coming up very soon, with only Luke Bennett to answer for Team Redline when it comes down to the final fight later on here at Hockenheimring. It's all being teed up for the major, but don't forget the team's championship will be settled here. And Rietveld now, as he commences his lap 10 of 10, will now have to wait behind and sit behind. And again, everything up to chance, everything dependent on what happens in the final race here tonight as well. All on Luke Bennett's shoulders should it stay like this. And what kind of pressure does that leave? What does that leave Luke Bennett when it comes later on? Is he under pressure, Lewis? Is he, you know, because that's when, obviously he's got his own prerogatives, but naturally going through to the major, the team's championship has definitely got to be at the forefront of his thinking right now, isn't it? Has it not?
Yeah, I mean, well, right now Bennett's moving through to the Red Sport. He's moving through to the Red Sport Summit. He's already got that one ticked off. It's about the team's championship here. It's about that. The problem is that I'm seeing here is I don't think Team Redline particularly have great pace around here. Maybe it's the BMWs, I don't know, but they do not seem particularly fast. Meanwhile, RAG will have two cars in there, being Marcel Chinchik and Erhan Yujovski at the moment, both of which do look pretty quick right now. So if I'm Team Redline, I know they've got a good points haul on RAG you know, in the standings, but it is rounds like this that can completely flip it around, and it could all come down to that 1-10 lap race. Fantastic, that's exactly what we want.
Absolutely now, but Marko Pejic, after a hellacious championship run, he's now making his way around here, the final sector at Hockenheim, here in lap 10 of 10. He delivered an absolutely exponential blow in qualifying, taking pole position ahead of Kaiki Oliveira, and he's going to finish ahead of him again here at Hockenheim, and he'll cross the line and take victory here. He's already a race winner, he's a final winner, he is now a race winner here in the semi-final here at Hockenheim, here in round 8. Marko Pejic, your race winner here in semi-final 2, and surely will carry that momentum when we go racing later on in the final race as well here in round 8. That's a W for Mercedes.
And a big one. A very big W indeed. That's again, Pejic does this thing, right, where he's just sort of like, oh, well, I'm not convinced in this, but I'm not. Yeah, maybe he's. Oh, he's won, is he? Oh, okay, fair enough. I'd always believed in him. It's madness.
He's a fantastic driver. I mean, look, let's just talk about that pole lap. I mean, it was clinical, wasn't it? At the end of the day, again, doesn't it make like qualifying all the more important, Lewis?
I think qualifying is super important. You only get one lap, but track position is such a short race. Track position is so important. I know you can go for the overtakes, but look at Darren McCormack, one of the fastest, still struggled to work his way through in the semi-final 1. Let's take a look, though, at highlights from semi-final 2. As the race got underway in that run down towards the first corner, it was Pejic on pole position ahead of Keke Oliveira. It was this mid-pack, though, 5th, 6th, 7th, where all the drama ensued coming down towards the second corner. Josh Rogers trying to make his way past Joni Tormela, and there was a bit of stacking up behind. Yuri Kasdorp all involved in the train. Also Isaac Price in there, the Team Redline driver of Kevin Siggy, all involved in that. Big slide from Yuri Kasdorp, who was just able to hang onto his car directly behind Joshua Rogers. And then Kevin Siggy was making a move down the inside of the G2 Esports driver of Isaac Price going into the second corner. Was almost 3 wide down onto the Parabolica as the Redline were almost switching their way round. Kevin Siggy, Jeffrey Rietveld all fighting out Isaac Price down and out wide. Contact between the pair of them off of the hairpin. Isaac Price pushed out a little bit wide. The switchover would happen in advantage of Team Redline. They were a bit of contact though as Graham Carroll would get himself involved into the mix down the inside of Kevin Siggy, and then Yuri Toma would give his effort around the Parabolica to try and make his way past. The big fight in the championship though, teams-wise, between RXG and Team Redline. These could be some absolutely crucial points as Tommy Usgaard was sat off the rear end thinking about how he needed to get through for some very crucial points for him. Was unable to do so just about here, but once there was this big send down the inside from Yuri Toman, contact between himself and Kevin Siggy, that was Usgaard's opportunity to work his way through the arena section and up into 10th place. Whilst the back two would continue their fight a little bit too deep from Kevin Siggy into the side of Tommy Usgaard, and more contact. Taking a look at that, they both managed to hit the Porsche ahead of them in what was becoming a very outrageous fight for 11th position, all for the switch over of a couple of points in the team's championship. Yuri Toman was to the inside of Kevin Siggy. You try and go to the outside as they leave the arena section, and the outside for Mobile One. It was fantastic and enthralling, but not for the positions we would expect two drivers of this caliber to be fighting over. Marko Pejic, though, was dominant from the front. He'd come through the final corner to take victory over Keke Oliveira, Erhan Yovski, Joni Tormela, Joshua Rogers, and Yuri Kasdorp, who is the driver we're going to be catching up with here. Yuri, talk to us about that race. I mean, you looked very, very patient in there, just sat behind and allowing the train to carry on with their own thing.
Yeah, after the start, of course, in the first lap, we adjusted for positions a bit. I tried to go around the outside of Josh Rogers, lost the rear a bit there, and then my rear tires were just immediately hot, so I had to try to manage them for a couple of laps and just be patient. And then one time got close to Josh, and I think if Josh wouldn't make the finals, we have a chance of maybe overtaking him. So I tried my luck with like not a very risky move, but it didn't work out. So.
You've had a very up and down season. Obviously, only one final visit before this. Talk to us about that season. Talk to us about the highs and lows and how this could still end in a trip to Munich, provided the finals go the right way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you want me to say exactly what I think about my performance this season and also what's been happening this season. A lot of things, like of course, if you put yourself in a position where you're fighting for P6, you don't have everything in your own hands, and other people can do risky sends. Things can be judged the way you maybe not think they would be judged. But obviously, if you just qualify top 3 and you drive away like some drivers consistently do, you don't have those issues. So I've got no one else to blame but me.
Now, very finally, then, before I let you jump off and continue your practice, you're going into the final with your teammate Moritz Lerner, who's obviously gone through from semi-final 1. Any communications between the pair of you two? Are you going to work together, or is it more just about focusing on what you have to do for your chance to move through to Munich?
From what I've seen, I think I should be fine to go through Munich unless something really weird happens. So
it's pressure off in that regard. So we're just gonna try to do the best we can, and with Moritz, we'll see if we're close to each other. Obviously, we might be able to communicate, but it's so hard to overtake, as you can see in these races, that if we're a couple positions apart, there's not much we can do.
Well, Yuri, mate, we'll let you get on with some practice. Cheers, and good luck for the final.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Right now, I think I saw a bit of an Easter egg that looked super cool. New car being added into Rensport, maybe? Question mark. That was the top secret announcement. How are we feeling? Me personally, my initial instinct was, oh my god, is that a Batmobile? That was
no,
first reaction.
That, to me, Jasmine, looks like an LMP or a prototype. So very enticing. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk around, what will Rensport be offering, I think, obviously, in terms of cars. There's been a lot of mystery around it. As you would imagine, obviously, not a lot has been revealed in terms of what the direction's going to be, which makes these announcement videos all the more enticing. There's a lot of talk around what cars are we going to have. Obviously, we've seen nothing but GT3 so far, but by the looks of it, we could be seeing some prototypes. We could be seeing some LMPs. I'm very excited about that.
I'm super excited because it means I get to roast some more liveries as well in the process. So I think that's going to be certainly exciting. But focusing in a little bit more on the semi-final 2 that we just witnessed there. For the folks at home, if you've only just joined us, then do not fear. You have not completely missed out just yet. This is the end of our semi-final 2, but we're going to be heading over into our grand finals, our final round here for ESL R1 ultimately. So let's go ahead and revisit our start of the race, and you could talk me through it. Was it as hectic as you had kind of anticipated?
Well, probably in comparison, I think the real hectic element came from Kevin Siggy and, of course, that of Yuri Toman. But a comprehensive getaway from Marko Pejic, I think, certainly delivered him the positive result, as we can now see it from a POV camera as well. Obviously, like I said, yeah, very clean getaway. You see Yuri Kaz up there in front. Obviously, we just heard some comments from him as well. Everything is obviously about the final visit as well. There we saw, of course, the likes of the G2 cars getting right in the mix. It was a huge squabble right at the get-go. Of course, it wasn't necessarily to be for Isaac Price. It was a very tricky race for him as well, as they made their way through the first sector. Still, though, they did very well, G2, in a sense, with Johnny Tormler, who got a very good run, certainly out at the Spitz curve. He was under pressure a little bit from that of Yuri Kazdorp, and again, a little tussle side-by-side element as well. Team Redline did not have the best of races. Of course, Jeffrey Riedfeld, I think, probably would have wanted a little bit more. He was right in the mix, but just seemed to tail off. Those tyres just simply weren't working for him late on.
And my heart breaks for Kevin Siggy, to be quite honest with you, because from starting 8th to finishing 12th, is there some sort of disappointment on your end? Did you kind of anticipate a bit more coming out from him?
Well, yeah, because it means we're not going to see any moustache twirls, unfortunately. He's got one of the finest moustaches in the world of sim racing. But hey, no. He's been an absolute peripheral figure in the world of ESL R1. And it's, like Lewis alluded to, it's really strange seeing him at the very bottom, and also Yuri Toman as well. But it was such an amazing fight between two great drivers. And I think this just goes to show what the Teams Championship means to these two teams. Because you got RAG and Team Redline, basically a massive dogfight. And now in terms of number of drivers, RAG have got the upper hand in this one. They've got 2 drivers in the final, only one, Luke Bennett for Team Redline. What could that mean?
It's certainly going to be looking a little bit shaky, but once again, for the folks at home, another reminder that this is ESL R1 powered by VRS. And to find out a little bit more about those VRS products, go ahead and type !VRS in the chat to find out a little bit more. Now, with that semi-final 2 concluding, I think it's about time we check in with the results of how it all ended up panning out. Jeffrey Rietveld, so close yet so far.
He was. It all started to really come to a bitter end towards the end of the race. Like I said, I think the tyres might have got the better hand because Graham Carroll was closing. And this really isn't the result Team Redline were looking for. 2 cars out already. We allude to the fact that qualifying is so important, and they simply weren't in that top 6 conversation, really. I was kind of hoping that Rietveld would be able to bring his best. He was very close to getting through. Unfortunately, not close enough to get himself a top 6. But a crucial top 6 for Yuri Kasdorp. Of course, he's got his own ambitions here at this point. Marco Pejic on top. Kaiki Oliveira, a grand effort from him, and Furia to come home in second. Erhan Yujovski up in third as well. Tormala with a great run as well in 4th place. Joshua Rogers in the mix too, once again, as we sort of come to expect throughout the course of this championship. But yeah, some major blows there at the bottom. Very surprised that Yuri Toman's out as well.
Yeah, I think there was certainly a lot of support in the chat. I've been keeping my eye on the chat as well. A lot of support for the Mouse team, certainly coming out from the fans as well. But as we check in with our major tier list once again, let's see how everything has ended up panning out, starting with Mikael Gade. Talk to me, George. How are we feeling?
Well, Mikael Gade, I got to be honest, it's going to be a tough one for him. I think it's definitely looking like he's going to struggle. I'd say looking forward as well, there's a few other drivers definitely in the mix. I mean, Tommy Usgarn in trouble, Isaac Price. I would like to see him get through, but I think at the moment he's going to struggle. I mean, a man of his character, you certainly would expect to be at the top, but he is out of this championship, so it's not ideal at all. Graham Carroll, another name that's out at this point as well as many others. We've got also the likes of Thomas Tatler, who was also mathematically in jeopardy as well at this point after that issue earlier on. But yeah, those are 3 big names: Mikael Gade, Isaac Price, and Graham Carroll out of the conversation when it comes to the major final at the summit in Munich.
I'm feeling a little bit sad for many of the drivers for obvious reasons, but then I'm feeling so incredibly excited for drivers such as Luke Bennett. This is now his 7th finals appearance versus the Marco Pejic for the side of Mercedes, who obviously he's now on his 4th finals appearance. Do you think this kind of level of pressure for these 2 drivers, are you feeling confident that Luke Bennett, using the, I don't know, forces that be, the power that he has, having so many finals placements backing him, is really going to give him the confidence that he needs to win out and finish overall in 1st position?
How's he going to stomach being the only Redline car currently up against obviously 2 RAGs? That's going to be thrilling. I think also you look at Pejic, who's already won a final as well as Luke Bennett. So you've got 2 drivers that have both achieved essentially in the maximum in terms of each round, taking final wins apiece. And obviously Luke Bennett looking to try and achieve more, as no doubt Marco Pejic is. But you never know, we might see a new face at the top. That's the beauty of ESL R1. It's literally a giant question mark. RAG still yet to get their first final win, and that could be the difference between them winning or losing the team's championship. It's all a mystery, and that's what we've come to love. It would be a spectacular feat if RAG could win the team's championship off the back of a final win tonight. It would definitely send shockwaves, I think, through the community.
Do we think that they will? Here's the question. Let's go ahead and bring up our team championship standings, and you can talk me through whether or not you actually think it's going to happen. Are Redline going to be absolutely furious with themselves?
Well, I mean, down to pure mathematics, it is certainly still up for question. We're not still 100% sure as to what's possible. Obviously, everything's provisional, but let's take a look at the championship standings, of course, coming into tonight. Of course, RAG 611 points, closing down on Team Redline 683. But the big factor being that should there be 2 wins, or should we say 2 drivers performing for RAG, a potential final win as well, it could mean everything to RAG in terms of the outgoing points. Remember, 60 points would be massive at this time, and certainly having 2 drivers with the possibility of doing that, it will close that gap. It's going to be intriguing. We're going to move across now to the tier list as well, because we have got some more updates to bring you surrounding that, folks, as well. As you can see from our list, we've currently got Mikael Gade and Isaac Price as well. Kaiki Oliveira solidifying his placement up into the major. He has now made it through. Eamon Murphy as well. Add him to your list as well, folks. Those places are starting to drop now as Jakub Brzezinski also secures his position here too. Jeffrey Rietveld doing enough at this point as well to secure major. Porsche, and so has Mac Backen, the Big Mac, with an appearance after not even featuring in tonight's semi-final. Mitchell de Jong as well. He will no doubt secure his place as well for Porsche. But what about Yuri Kasdorp, a man that has certainly enlisted himself into tonight's final? He's, of course, got himself on the precipice of a major. Thomas Tackler as well, through to the major despite the issues earlier on. We'll have to wait and see. And that certainly is the final list of names. Still up for question is Sebastian Job and Tommy Usgaard. One space left here, Jasmine.
Oh my goodness, I'm literally on the edge of my seat. I'm hoping it's going to be Sebastian Job. No offense, Tommy, whatsoever, but I just feel like it would be such a beautiful story coming in at round 6, showing that you are a force to be reckoned with, back-to-back finals appearances. It would just be such a Cinderella story for him. But yet again, I'm going to put you on the spot. Is it going to be Sebastian Job joining us in Munich?
It could well be. I tell you what, if there's one man that you want behind the wheel in a situation such as this, it's Sebastian Job, I can assure you. I mean, obviously, he's proven that he is, without a doubt, one of the fastest contenders in this game. I can only imagine what could have been had we had him from round 1 onwards, no doubt contesting for the top-end placements. He probably would have sealed the deal on a visit in Munich very early on, certainly based off what we've already seen. But now that he's in this predicament, this fight now between him and Tommy Usgaard to decide who gets that final spot, there is so much on the line in this final race because you've got the Teams Championship and you've got the final place in Munich. It just delivers a mouth-watering prospect. I can't wait.
A major in its own right, and I'm certainly excited to dive straight into all of the major goodness as well. Man, oh man, it's going to be a sweet event.
I'm in my element, it's evident that there's levels to the game. All of those dark nights I got then, breaking my back to make it out, got me feeling like rain. I ain't never need your help, I know you wishing me well, a penny for your thoughts, but seeing no change. I snap for the sun like Diddy, the riches got a mad ass son, I'm like Billy. I ain't never switch up, whole team with me, but known for my city like O-A-G-Z. Fabulous, they try to dabble in it, and they hate the fact that they may have to witness. You try to aim for the top like this, and you're in your element with a fire like this, and they hoping you falling and praying you miss, but it's all in the risk. I got you with the switch, you know. I'm in the zone.
Major, major, major. It is major time, baby. And I'm so incredibly excited to see all of these drivers do their thing in a LAN environment as well. I'm hoping that the audience that's going to show up, yes, that's you folks at home, go ahead and claim your free tickets by typing !ticket in the chat to find out more. I'm kind of anticipating whether or not the fan experience, the audiences that are going to be there are going to make them feel a little bit more nervous. What do you think?
Well, you know, racing in front of people is another thing. I mean, we witnessed in Katowice, you know, certain teams perhaps did better, you know, with the pressure than others did. But yeah, I mean, having the people in amongst everything here, certainly at ESL as well at the R1 Championship, it is certainly a thrill. We witnessed so many smiling faces watching on, and it was such a scene to see the rigs all around in a circle when we went racing at the Katowice event. And now we get to do it all again in Munich as well, at its very own event too. So it's all there. It's all for the purposes of Rennsport. It's going to be a clinic. It's going to be a fascination. I can't wait to see what happens.
Well, I have a theory, right, that there are some drivers that fully absorb the LAN environment, right? They thrive in that kind of capacity, in that kind of environment. But then you have others where it's like the comfort zone of being at home, doing their thing, headphones in, not really paying attention to anyone else around them because there is nobody else around them. I think the balance of the two is certainly going to show over in Munich, and I'm super excited to see it. But let's go ahead and revisit our tier list once again as we have a small minor adjustment in regards to some of the drivers that we will be seeing. Tattler will not be making it, so unfortunate for him. I know we certainly heard and saw the frustration from him in the interview that he did with Lewis as well. But once again, you can go away from an experience like this, taking away the positives, the team environment you've managed to build, the improvements you've made week after week as well, I think is certainly a big takeaway for many of our drivers and many of our teams as well. But let's go ahead and have a bit of a recap for some of our round winners. Take me through memory lane, George.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you have a look at here, we all kicked off everything at round 1 with Maximilian Benneker taking the first round at Katowice. When we, of course, went racing at Spa-Francorchamps, was quickly followed up in round 2, also at Katowice. Joshua Rogers taking the second LAN event victory in round 2 at Hockenheimring. Luke Bennett, who features in the final tonight, as well, looking to try and do the business for Redline. He was the round 3 winner. Dara McCormack taking round 4 for Williams, and he did it back-to-back as well when we went racing at Hockenheimring in round 5. Marco Pejic, of course, who just came off the back of winning in semi-final 2. He won at the Nürburgring in round 6. Joshua Rogers has gone to take his second as well at Spa-Francorchamps in round 7 to match the record set by Dara McCormack. But mystery, and certainly the jury is still out as to who is going to take the round 8 final win and also the major later on this year as well.
I feel like the Dara McCormack kind of results spoke for themselves. There was certainly a lot of hype surrounding him. He was absolutely ecstatic when we interviewed him as well. So I'm curious to see whether or not we'll be seeing any more back-to-back finals placements. Maybe, potentially, who knows? I'm curious to see who it's going to be by the time that today's broadcast ultimately ends as well. But let's go ahead and have a look at which of those drivers has the possibility of taking that sweet victory for our finals here. Oh, okay. I don't think it's ready yet. Oh, we have some tea. We do have some tea. There are some penalties being calculated right now. Talk to me, George. Who do we think is going to be subject to most penalties?
Well, there's a possibility of a few. I mean, we saw obviously back in semi-final 1 where there was a little bit of a scrap happening between the likes of Thomas Tattler as well, and we do have an interview as well coming up now with the Team Redline manager, I believe, Jasmine.
Oh, hello. Welcome. How's it going? Firstly, seeing one of your drivers successfully making it through to the finals. Unfortunate for the others not being able to join, but how do you think Luke's going to fare up heading into the finals?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Was quite a stressful 2 races, as you said. Luke went through, was quite easy. The second race didn't go in our favor, and yeah, well, now we need to see this team championship. I think it's gonna be a tight one with RG. Looking forward to it, but also it's gonna be a bit stressful, I think.
So following the quarterfinals that happened, did you have any sort of concern straight after quarterfinals that RHG would overtake yourself and the team Redline heading into this final round?
Well, not really. We know that it will be decided in the final. We just had to make sure to keep Tolman behind in the second semi-final. And yeah, at this point we knew it's going to be decided in the final. Of course, we tried to get Jeffrey or Kevin, and it didn't work out in the end. So now Luke has to finish the job basically in the final.
And looking ahead, obviously, at this point, with only one being that of Luke Bennett coming through, what do you think were the standout moments this season for Team Redline here? Because obviously it's been quite a fascinating championship. We've gone from having 2 LAN events at Katowice, now in the online environment. How have the team adjusted to those different environments, and how do you think they will feel things will go when they go to Munich later on this month?
Yeah, I think we had quite a rough start in Katowice. It didn't really go our way, due to multiple reasons. But then during the online rounds, we really recovered well. I think Luke really found his mojo, really got going. Of course, he's leading the championship right now, so make effort from him, but also from the whole team. We just make sure to get the consistent points in, to be there every round, to not screw things up, and that was our main focus, and that's also why we are sitting now in P1. And as for Munich, I think for now the priority first of all is the team championship. That's what it's all about today, and this is the main focus. Once that's settled, then of course we're going to think about Munich. I think there's now a gap of a couple of days, so of course we're going to sit together. We're going to prepare for Munich to make sure that we are really as well prepared as we can be, and then then on to the driver championship in Munich.
Well, heading into this final round, I've got to ask you, did you notice any added level of stress, maybe nervousness, apprehension from your drivers since this was the final round?
No, not really. I think I think the start of the season was more stressful because at this point we had to catch up, and now we sort of, we got the points in. We've been very consistent, so now we sort of, we put ourselves in a position where we can get the team championship on our own, and we didn't have to rely on anyone else to not score points. So that made it a little more. A little bit more easy to, so to speak. But of course, everyone wanted to perform today. Of course, a shame for Jeffrey and Kevin not to make it, and also of course Enzo not make it to the semi. But I think Luke is really, really confident. So yeah, I don't think he's feeling any extra pressure. He just wants to get going and get this team championship done now.
Fantastic. Well, I mean, thank you ever so much for joining us for the interview as well. Obviously, looking ahead, obviously a big final up ahead, but I'm sure you guys have got it in the bag to obviously secure a big point tonight. But we'll wait and see, won't we?
Hopefully, yeah. Thanks for having me, guys.
Cheers.
Thank you for joining us. How are we feeling about that? I feel like there's certainly a lot of pressure on Luke. I think being the sole representative for his team, I think it's all about bragging rights, right? Like, I mean, even if I've got my spot at the major, I want the bragging rights being like, you know what? Yeah, I'm at the major and I'm the best damn driver that's going to be there as well.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously there's a contest afoot, and naturally Team Redline are looking for the big results. I mean, obviously RHG are going to be the team that they've got to try and beat, and naturally it's all up to them now to try and score those major points. In these dying moments of this championship. Obviously round 8 now, major coming up, but still it's all about the team's battle, and they're all going to be flexing their muscles, Jasmine, looking to try and get the big points here in round 8.
Well, I think on that note, we should welcome to join us on broadcast Mehdi from the side of Team RHG as their manager. Firstly, welcome to the broadcast. How are you feeling? Finals are afoot.
Yeah, this is going to be extremely interesting. We have one extra driver compared to Redline in the finals, if I get the things correctly. So yeah, all it needs is a mistake from Luke in quali, and we can possibly catch back if things goes nicely for us as well.
Yeah, I mean, Mehdi, looking at your team's approach, obviously this season, I did mention to Lewis that you were one of the most fascinating teams this season. Obviously, one of the most consistent teams, but yet to still get a final win this season. Looking ahead, I mean, you've got 2 drivers like you allude to in this final round. How much would it mean to get your first final win and at the same time potentially use it to secure the team's championship tonight? That could be massive.
Yeah, that would be lovely. That would be lovely. The drivers know that they have to be on their A game in the upcoming race in order to hopefully secure the team championship. So they're definitely going to give everything. So yeah, I'm hopeful for today. Turn 1 is of course a very complicated turn for the Audi, but we'll make the most of it and we'll see how it goes.
Well, as George did mention, it's been quite the journey, weeks after weeks here at ESL R1. How has the adaptation from your side and the team side been? Have you been changing up the schedule as the weeks have gone on? Any key changes, or has it been pretty consistent in terms of, schedules day to day?
Yeah, I mean, it was consistent for the most part, of course. The guys really know how to work with each other, and it really paid off, especially early in the season. So we decided to keep on the consistency regarding to that. It made them quite confident. So this was what we deemed the best choice.
Yeah, and obviously, Mehdi, looking ahead now to what has to be a fascinating summit. You've been with the drivers now ever since we went racing at Katowice. Obviously, I got a chance to speak to you when we were over there for the very first LAN event as well. You're very, should we say, impassioned talking to your drivers. You're a very vocal character. I see you around with them. You sort of embrace each other. You're pretty close as a unit. What's it been like to sort of try and drive that mentality, that winning mentality? How tricky has it been to maintain that?
Well, the thing is, the guys have known each other for quite a while already, so it's pretty much like a family. I'm here to mostly help them keep their minds fully focused into the racing part of it. I'm here to try to reassure them into when it comes to the race, because we know that it's quite complicated during the races, a lot of battles. So the main point is to make sure that they have all the focus they can during the races. So this is what I've been working on for the most part. But yeah, it's not really been hard because we are it's a very tight-knit group, so it really helps.
Well, wonderful stuff. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast, and best of luck to you and the team.
Thank you. Regards.
Oh, what a lovely chap. What a lovely chap. Well, I think on that note, we should go ahead and take a look at the fabulous drivers that will be joining us in the very final round here at ESL R1 round number 8. Talk to me, George. How are we feeling about this?
Well, look at what's on the line. You've got two drivers at the very bottom. Of course, Yuri Kazdorp and Sebastian Joe, both of them obviously fighting to get to Munich. Yeah, Kazdorp already sealing his place. But what about Sebastian Joe in what has to be one of the most integral races of his championship? He needs to secure points to outgo Tommy Østgaard. This final has a lot on the table, and I'm sure Sebastian Joe will be looking to hit the heights, no less to perhaps even bring G2 a victory, a final victory as well. And also the fight between that of RAG and that as well of Team Redline. You've got Marcel Chinchik and Erhan Yovski right in the mix. And there you've got further down as well, Team Redline with only one solitary driver. That, of course, being Luke Bennett, who's at the top of the standings. Obviously there with 239. There you can see it on the right-hand side. But yeah, fascinating encounter, Jasmine.
Well, we said it from the very start of today. Sebastian Jobe needs to get a minimum of 4th place in order to make it through to the major. We thinking he can do it? I'm saying he can take pole position, just saying.
Well, he did do it earlier on, taking pole and a race win in our first semi-final. So he essentially is the proven, holds the proven track record, I suppose. And he has really lit things up ever since he's been part of this championship. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can deliver. I'm seeing as you're predicting him, I'm going to go across, I think, and predict. I'm going to go with Luke Bennett.
Ooh, okay, spicy stuff. Now it's over to the folks at home once again. We want to hear your thoughts, chat. Who do we think is going to come out on top? Who's going to finish in that first place? Is it going to be Sebastian Jobe? Is it going to be Joshua Rogers? I don't know. It could be Luke Bennett. I mean, Luke Bennett statistically has the best track record that we have seen thus far. Maybe he can do it. I don't know. I want to get Lewis's thoughts on this. Lewis, bro, homie.
Oh, so are we good now? Are we all right now?
We're good now.
All of a sudden, we're
Don't worry about it.
all right. No, that's fine. I will say, I'm gonna go against both of your picks. I'm gonna go because it was a good point that George made in the previous race. RAG have not actually won a final. I think that changes today. I think Marcel Chinchik is going to take this one. I've got a good feeling, which is obviously going to be ruined immediately.
I'm gonna have to strongly disagree with you.
Well,
not just disagree, strongly disagree, because you have to factor in the element of pressure. I think that's gonna be the breaking point. I think any other race, maybe, but the fact that this is it, the final countdown, I don't know. I think it could be wraps. What do we think, George?
I think, honestly, it's going to be fascinating. I think the beauty about this scenario is you've got two massive moments that are currently in the prospects of happening. You've got Sebastian Jobe, who's essentially joined after round 6. He's in the mix to try and get himself to Munich. And you've got this gargantuan tussle between that of RAG and Team Redline. Both team managers think they have the ability to secure the big points. They all said that they have the ability to perform here at Hockenheimring. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a spicy affair, whether you're a neutral or a fan of a certain team or driver. I think you're going to witness something very special here tonight. This tonight could be the race of the season.
This is going to be the game-changing moment for all of our drivers, the fans at home, and also the organizations that they're representing. So without further ado, gents, take it away.
Certainly so. Well, big time is here into the final. A lot to deal with. Who's going to win teams, championships, etc. But also, we do have something else slightly to discuss. I've been doing some calculations and stuff behind the scenes. Big old nerd. Got a nice little spreadsheet keeping on. This, by the way, is practice. We are not in qualifying yet. We'll let you know how that unfolds in a few minutes' time. Points-wise, we've said before about the position that Sebastian Job is in. He needs 4th position in this race. He'll be on 93 points if he gets 4th place. But if he doesn't, if he gets 5th place, sorry, he won't be on 93 points. He'll be above 93 points. If he finishes in 5th place, he'll be on 92 points. Coincidentally, is the same amount of points as Tommy Østgaard.
Very interesting. So then that throws another spanner in the works. But we got to allude to the fact that we witnessed Sebastian Job go pole and take the win in semi-final 1. So he's got to be one to watch, hasn't he, really, going forward? I mean, he needs P4, without a shadow of a doubt. That's what he needs at this point.
Yeah, because if it comes down to countback, the countback would be the best result from a previous round, which Tommy Østgaard's previous result, his best previous result, was a 4th. And the only final appearance he's had, by the way, was a 4th place. Meanwhile, Sebastian Jobs, obviously, if that were the case, would be 5th place. 4 is slightly better than 5 in my numbers, and so Tommy Østgaard would win it on countback if that is eventually the case. So, you know, who knows? If I were Tommy Østgaard right now, I would not be packing my bags. That's how I would feel. Not right now. I mean, I think he needs a lot of luck in this because Sebastian Job's pace is mega, but his finals aren't great.
No, that's very true, Lewis. And if there's ever a time to correct that issue, obviously it's now, as we now have a very nice panoramic view. This is, of course, the ESL R1 logo. You can just see there the banner littered across this circuit here of the Hockenheimring. Under the sunlight, not a cloud in the sky. And we're going to be watching the drivers certainly make their way around as well, qualifying very shortly, getting underway. But still, nonetheless, we've got a fascinating battle afoot. And it's all about R8G and all about Team Redline, is it not, Lewis? We've got one solitary Redline driver, Luke Bennett, against 2 R8G contenders. And if there's ever a time, as you said before, for R8G to take a victory, it's now, don't you think?
Yeah, this is going to... I've got this vibe. This is going to come down to a few points. This is going to be really, really tight. At the moment, accounting for Team Redline and, well, for any of the drivers, for all of the finalists, accounting for them to have 20 points, which is the minimum number of points you can get from a final. If you finish in 12th place, you get 20 points. At the moment, Team Redline have 725 points. R8G have 657. So, yes, that does sound like a very large margin and effectively means nothing at the moment. It can swing very quickly. You get 60 points for a victory in this. So Bennett's minimum number is 20. It's going to be a very testing qualifying session, and we're on board with Pajic in it, who obviously has a pole position and a victory today. If I'm Bennett, I'm feeling that pressure right now. He's a young kid, don't get me wrong, he can deal with that pressure, but it is building on his shoulders. Must nail this lap time. Let's see what Pajic can do, though, through the first sector. Anywhere in the low 20s, something like a 20.1, 20.2 would be pretty healthy. As he cuts the beat, 20.199 is okay.
It's a fair reflection. I think certainly in Sector 1, he did clatter the sausage curb heading out of Turn 1 as well. You've got to take all the risks you can, certainly through that first sector. We saw Dara McCormack earlier on in the evening, of course, invalidate his opening run heading through that first sector. As we now see Pajic fighting with the car out of Spitz Curve as he makes his way through towards Sector 2. Of course, be looking to try and recapture his best form, obviously the form that would take him to pole position when, of course, we went racing in our earlier semi-finals, and, of course, securing the big points as well by taking victory as well in that semi-final too. But he will only get the points off the back of this final visit. Obviously, remember, folks, if you get above P7, the points you generally get awarded is that of what you get in the final. And that's exactly what these drivers will be squabbling over now as Pajic now fights the car heading through the stadium section.
Yeah, this could actually be a very good lap time. Could even break into the 35s. That second sector is phenomenal. Faster even than Sebastian Jobs from the first semi-final qualifying session. Through the penultimate corner and out through the final, up towards the line. Again, aiming for a very, very low 36 as he had in the previous session, or maybe even going faster than that, setting a 35. He crosses the line, and it is a 35.961. That is the fastest time we have seen today. That is mega from Marco Pajic. 4,000ths faster than what Sebastian Job did in the first semi-final. Can his teammate go one better, slightly faster in the first, slightly slower in the second?
Yeah, he's broken into that 135, Lewis. That could be integral to what could be a great time for Marco Page, setting the fastest lap tonight. Now James Baldwin looks to come and join him up at the top as well. Can he do just that as he now crosses the line and goes within a 10th? It's not bad. It's not the best, but it's not bad, Lewis. It's not bad at all.
No, and obviously a reminder that when Marco Page did win that final a few rounds ago, who was second to him on that day? It was his teammate, James Baldwin. Talk about dealing with pressure, by the way. Look at that first and second sector from Luke Bennett. This could be a 0.8, a 35.8 potentially, as Bennett comes out of the final corner. He is the lone representative of Team Redline at the moment. He crosses the line and does a 35.927. Marco Page will be sent out from the top of this shot and be replaced with Luke Bennett after a phenomenal lap time. What can Marcel Cinčić do in response?
This is huge now. Obviously, with Luke Bennett up at the top, it gives Redline a huge possibility to secure the team's title. 135.927 to beat Cinčić now in the mix. You see Bennett up at the top right. He is jubilant with that lap time. Can it be, though, beaten by Cinčić, who does come across, goes fastest by 5,000ths of a second. Incredible scenes here at the Hockenheimring, and he answers back to Team Redline with a pole lap so far of his own.
that is mega, by the way. 35.922. How elated would Luke Bennett have been for about 20 seconds before having his world taken away and crushed in front of him? Here comes Josh Rogers out through the final, two-time ESL R1 finalist winner, as he'll cross his line. I think it's good enough for pole. It's only good enough for fifth, despite being a lap time which was good enough for somewhere in a decent position inside the top 5 earlier on. I'm not sure it's going to hang on as Kasdorp's into the final sector.
Yeah, Yuri Kasdorp obviously sealing the deal on his visit to the major from the semi-final, making his way around the final couple of corners now himself for Mouse, who have enjoyed a real bright start to their sim racing journey as they now make their way up towards the line now. Kasdorp, where's he going to be? Sixth fastest, 3 tenths plus 3 tenths. There in 6th as well. And there you see in the pole cam at the top right, of course, Cinčić looking so prominent up at the top, but here comes Joni Tormela.
Yeah, we saw this in the first, in the semi-finals, where Joni Tormela's first sector is way faster than anyone else. I think he's absolutely mullering that curb. His second sector, though, not so great. Out of the final corner up towards the lines, it's good enough to challenge in those higher spots. It's good enough to get into 4th, but he is not challenging the top right of our screen. He's not going on to pole cam at the moment. That is being held by Marcel Cinčić, but some very big names to come. Oliveira, Jajowski, Lerner, De Jong, and Job as well. This is going to be a tough fight for those behind.
It's fascinating here, Lewis. Kaiki Oliveira now, who has certainly been the feature driver for Furia, who have enjoyed certainly many a great result under his tutelage, now in 8th place right now. Can he elevate himself higher here with a big lap? Goes 7th fastest, higher than Yuri Kasdorp now. So in the top 7, but not, should we say, as high as maybe he would have liked, but I'm sure he'll take solace in bringing home some big points for Furia. But this could be crucial here. Erhan Jajowski, of course, RHG against Redline. It writes its own story here, Lewis.
Yeah, first sector's decent, second sector's pretty average, but I know Jajowski's actually pretty decent in this final one. At the moment, he'll be challenging for something around sort of like 4th and 5th place. Can he find a little bit more time in that final sector to challenge his teammate and maybe find himself on the front row? The answer's no. Loses time. 7th place is all that's good enough for the Macedonian. That is not what RHG needed. That is exactly what Team Redline did.
Yeah, they did. Ideally, Jajowski needed to get himself either in P3, P4, at least in proximity of that of Luke Bennett up at the very top. Here comes Moritz Lerner, who will no doubt want to try and get himself higher than teammate Yuri Kasdorp. 10th place currently for Lerner as he now heads up towards the line. He is also sensational when it comes to qualifying sessions. Where is he going to position himself, though? 8th fastest, not the best, but ahead of Kaiki Oliveira, behind Erhan Jajowski. You might be a little bit disappointed with that. Remember, he was fighting for the pole lap, but here comes Mitchell de Jong and Porsche Coanda.
Yeah, sector's not looking great. I think he might well be sort of 9th or 10th at the moment, Will de Jong, as he comes out of the final corner a little bit wide there, touching the sausage curb on the exit of the penultimate corner out through the final. De Jong's had a few struggles this season as he crosses the line. It is good enough for 10th, just ahead of Kasdorp. 1 lap time left to go. And remember, he left it. He was the last driver in the semi-finals to cross the line. He's the last driver again, but I'm not convinced by that second sector, George. Sebastian Job's coming up towards the line.
Yeah, remember, he needs to get himself at least in the top 4 to try and solidify a placement in the major as he now makes his way around the final corner here. Tommy Usgaard will no doubt be watching on as well. Looks a little untidy in Sector 3 after a tricky run in Sector 2. 7th fastest. That really does throw a spanner in the works for Sebastian Job, but it's Marcel Chinchik who leads the way heading through to the final race city here in round 8. And it is going to be Chinchik up at the top for RAG. What could this mean when we head to this final race? Could it mean that they beat Team Redline, or will Luke Bennett answer back?
I mean, I don't know, but that was a mega lap time from this driver here, Marcel Chinchik, doing it right at the last to grab pole position by 5 thousandths of a second. It was a mega lap time from Bennett, but it was better from Chinchik, crossing the line to take pole position. Again, it was fantastic, putting the pressure a little bit onto Team Redline. But yeah, there are a few talking points from that session which we'll discuss here as we look at the final. Our grid for the last race of the online season here, powered by VRS. Yuri Kasdorp and Mitchell de Jong starting on the final row of the grid, with Kaiki Oliveira starting from 10th. Moritz Lerner and the Mouse Car starting from 9th position. Erhan Yovski, R8G. A lot of work to do to go and win that team's championship. He needs a bit of drama from Bennett if he's got any hopes in that. Speaking of drama and someone that needs it, Sebastian Job. He needs 4th place in this race to progress his way through to Munich as the only driver that can make his way through that hasn't already locked his place in. He'll start from 7th with Josh Rogers, James Baldwin, Joni Tormula, Marco Pajic, Luke Bennett and Marcel Chinchik will start this one from pole position. This is madness. By the way, we've got a couple of updates coming in. I think we might need to revisit the tier list because we are being told some last minute changes. Mac Backham, Big Mac, will not be progressing through at the moment, and Tommy Usgaard, I believe it was, is going to be confirmed his way through. So some post-event shenanigans, some post-race shenanigans from the previous ones have switched some things around.
Interesting indeed. Now, so Tommy Usgaard now into the major. Sebastian Job, though, a different set of affairs here, Lewis. He still needs to get himself into the top 4 to get himself into a major. So it is going to be intriguing. Obviously, it's between him and the Big Mac. Is it going to be a Big Mac meal, or is it going to be Sebastian Job getting himself through to the major?
Yeah, it'll be because Tommy Usgaard would have actually been sort of like received a few extra points courtesy of a penalty in that race. So the barrier moves up slightly. Again, it was always going to be 4th place because if he got 5th place, did Sebastian Job, if he got 5th place, then he'd only have the same points as Tommy Usgaard. Now it's kind of switched around a little bit. He's now looking to try and beat Mac Backham. Basically, the task for him has not changed. It's just the drivers going through has. Tommy Usgaard fans will be very happy. There is James Baldwin. He'll be feeling some pressure. I spoke to him about that massive aircon unit directly behind him. He said it does well to keep him cool, and he needs it on days like this, especially when the pressures are through the roof. Marco Pajic, semi-final winner, and of course winner in the finals. We'll take a look at a few of our other drivers and also the straw poll as well. Who do you think is going to win? At the moment, your bets are on Sebastian Job, who'll roll off from 7th place. A little bit for Luke Bennett as well. Moritz Lerner and Yuri Kasdorp sharing the same percentage for Mouse, but they are far down the order. Marcel Chinchik, the pole sitter, only 5th on your guesses? Well, I'm not so sure about that. He's on pole by 5 thousandths of a second, and he'll have to start from there alongside Luke Bennett on the front row of the grid. The last of our finals in the online spring season, and the final journeys to Munich. Was that a potential jump start, though, from Josh Rogers from 5th position on the grid, as we'll take our look down towards the first corner. Bennett's got the inside line, the outside line being taken by Marcel Chinchik. He might well be out a little bit too wide there, as one of the Mercedes-AMG Team Petronas Esports cars is going to try and fight his way through, maybe into second. Confirmation of the penalty that that's going to go the way of Joshua Rogers, courtesy of a false start, but Marcel Chinchik has the whole shot as they head onto the Parabolica. A bit of a pinch there from Bennett, and that is going to slow things down and potentially make things 3 wide. Joni Toomala being positioned out, but look at this from Sebastian Job. He's going to try and make his way past potentially Josh Rogers as they get down to the hairpin. Will he get some assistance from his teammate as those two Mercs go in flying formation? The Silver Arrows heading down into the hairpin, all tidy through here through the mid-pack. Out wide goes Josh Rogers, and a few positions being picked up as they're 3 wide off the hairpin.
They certainly are. Further back, you can see the RAG getting himself right into the mix here. Of course, Chinchik further up the road. This is Yuyovski, who's right in the midst of this fight now between that and the Porsche Commander. That, of course, being Joshua Rogers. Don't forget as well, he's got to serve a penalty as well at this point. Toomala right in the mix. There's Yuyovski further back. Rogers right between him two as they come through this next right. The fast right-hander. Job still currently sits in 6th, but Yuyovski with a very different fight to this time. Rogers now settling in behind him, but he will have to take a penalty and drive through at this point after that false start.
Yeah, that is the 3rd jump start, I believe, for Porsche Coanda this season. They obviously had a couple in the same race a little while ago. Joshua Rogers into the pit lane, so still issues for them, and they return. That is a big shocker for the Porsche Coanda Esports team, and 12th might be good enough. Obviously, for a driver that's already progressing through to Munich in the long run, it doesn't matter too much. Marcel Chinchik pulling out by 0.6 of a second. I will remind you, those that have started for pole position and led that first lap today have a 100% win record. That is the same in the quarterfinals as well. Those that have been doing the most of the leading have gone on to win. Marcel Chinchik, he's going to be asking, well, he's probably just focused on what he's driving right now, but our questions to him will be, are there any mistakes on the table, and does Luke Bennett have anything in the tank to potentially do something about Chinchik? Does Sebastian Job have anything to do about the top 4? He's got Joni Toomala ahead of him, which surely will not be a particularly difficult pass to make to get himself up into 5th position, but a reminder to all of you at home, if he wants to go to Munich, he has to get 4th place.
Yeah, he does. Marco Pejic occupies that, and that's going to be less than easy because obviously you can imagine Pejic, who's already taken a pole and a race win here tonight, will be certainly no slouch when it comes to holding onto a position. And they're currently sitting in tandem. James Baldwin, very close and personal behind Luke Bennett right now as well. Currently sat within 0.4 of a second of that of the Team Redline car in 2nd place. Marcel Chinchik holding on to the lead here by 0.7 of a second as well. Looking very confident up at the front end as well. But they've got to task Erhan Yuyovski to gain a few extra places in order to put them right in the mix here. There's lots that could be answered here heading in through this final race here in tonight's round 8 scenario. We've got Chinchik leading, Bennett still within 0.7 of a second with Baldwin getting closer too, but look at that further down. Sebastian Job 8.5 tenths out the way of Joni Toomala. He's not getting any closer. That could be key here, Lewis.
Yeah, and of course, for anyone saying Joni Toomala needs to get out of the way now for Sebastian Job to go. No, absolutely not. If Joni Toomala gets out of the way now, then Sebastian Job has 1.3 seconds basically up to Marco Pejic. That means no slipstream. Right now, Joni Toomala needs to keep doing what he's doing. If Sebastian Job gets close, then I'm sure he'll jump out of the way. But until that point, you've just got to keep doing what you are doing right now. I mean, things will calm down. Things have calmed down after the first lap where everything was going a little bit crazy down to the hairpin. That was expected. At the moment, teams championship-wise, again, all very provisional, all this, that and the other, and also we're only 2 laps into, on the 3rd lap of a 10-lap race. At the moment, Team Redline will be winning the team's championship. They need drama for Bennett. They need Bennett basically to be right down towards the back of this field, and potentially even a little bit more work from Yuyovski. Right now, it's not changing up at all.
No, it's not. Yeah, Yuyovski currently down in 7th place, needs to try and lift himself higher and higher in this timing tower. Of course, further up as well, the closest man to Luke Bennett is James Baldwin, and Mercedes currently sat in a very pretty scenario of P3 and P4. Pejic occupying that 4th place. Can Team Redline secure the team's title in the very first time of asking? Here's the replay from the start here, Lewis.
Yeah, very clear jump start there from from Rogers. Seen that one, like we said, we saw it back in the Nürburgring, if memory serves, the last time we visited there in round 6 of the championship. We see it here in round number 8. Big clobbering of the curb there from Baldwin, who's closing in now on Bennett. Is he going to be close enough to potentially try something? Not into turn 2, but potentially down into the hairpin, deep onto the brakes. Remember, the Mercedes does typically struggle a little bit in this kind of section here, going into the second sector. A look at team bosses from both Team Redline and R8G. Mehdi Al-Fati on the top of the right-hand side for R8G. Mark Printing on the bottom right for Team Redline. Let's communication between Team Redline, obviously from manager to driver. Let's see how hard Bennett's going to fight Baldwin. The answer to that question is not hard at all, and you could tell by the reaction that Mark Printing had there. He was basically telling Bennett, who was very clearly asking, what's happening here, do I fight him? He said, no, don't fight him. Let Baldwin go. Wise move.
Yeah, definite. Yeah, I think so. I think obviously just alleviating the pressure. Doesn't want Luke Bennett to really be brought too heavily into a big fight at this point, especially when you are the sole Team Redline car. Of course, Mehdi Al-Fati there in the top section of the manager's cam that you can see in the bottom right-hand corner is obviously going to be conscious of the fact that Page is behind. He's probably going to want a little bit more pressure to be brought upon Luke Bennett here. Will ideally need Erhan Yujovski to get a little closer to that of Sebastian Job further up as well. But Sebastian Job has got his own issues. Now, look at that gap between him and Tormela. Still hasn't shown any signs of closing. And obviously, given the way the cards are stacked right now, Sebastian Job is not going through to the final major. That gives a chance here yet to the Big Mac. The Big Mac Backham might still have an opportunity to get to the major at this point, and it's looking like it's in his favour now.
Yeah, certainly so. Again, we'll say it again. We've said it a few times. We'll say it again. Sebastian Job, if he wants to progress through into the major, he needs to get 4th position. 6th, not good enough for Job. So there is a lot to deal with in all of this. Mac Backham might just about be right. By the way, the number we got for the cut-off, just want to touch on that for a second. The number we got for the cut-off, for the expected cut-off, which did come from Luke Crane, by the way, was 95. If this is the way it goes, then the cut-off will be 93. Wow. Not bad, not bad for a rough guess and a bit of calculation. So shout out to that one. We'll see what Sebastian Job can do if he can work his way up the order that extra little bit and see if he can do something. He's got to defend from Erhan Yujovski. He'll be hungry when it comes to the team's championship. At the moment, I'm just going to touch on the team's championship. If everything finishes as it is, Team Redline will have 756 points. R8G will have 712. Which is obviously not as close as R8G would want it to be. They want it a little bit closer, and they want to slightly swing the other way if they could possibly have it their way, almost halfway through this final race.
Yeah, there's more still to come. Obviously, another 5 laps and leaves plenty of opportunities for mass overtakes. Obviously, Sebastian Job will need to put his foot to the floor if he wants to try and challenge for the top-end results. You see him there in the bottom left-hand corner. The pressure certainly mounting at a very sensitive part of this championship squabble. Of course, Job in the very first ESL R1 event has been racing now with the G2 team now for quite some time, obviously since round 6, and has given certainly so many brilliant moments here to the team as well. And ever since fighting it out, 23 points obviously securing in round 6, and following that up with a 26-point visit, hasn't necessarily, as you alluded to prior as well, secured, should we say, the major points. Obviously, when we consider 60 points for a win, he probably would prefer that. That would have answered certainly a lot of the frailties in his books, and certainly in his mind's eye, he'll want a big result out of this one, not just for his own personal gratification, but to at least get himself into the major conversation. He's currently outside that crucial top 4. Currently, it's Mac Backham who's going to be taking that place as well. So I think he's going to, certainly if you're the Big Mac right now, you're breathing a huge sigh of relief should it stay like this.
Yeah, certainly so. I'm just going to update my points 1 second, by the way. It was 729 for R8G, so they're not a million miles off, 27 points shy of Team Redline in all of that. Like you say, it's one of the beautiful things with this kind of format is that people are feeling pressure that aren't even in this race. Why I love that qualifying, seeing the driver that's currently on pole position, because remember back to Marco Page, how much pressure he was feeling, and he could do nothing more. It's kind of what we're seeing from our team managers here in the bottom right. The team manager again, R8G on the top, Redline on the bottom. Those that are running their respective teams for ESL R1. They've got this pressure on their shoulders, but there's almost nothing they can do. They can give advice to the drivers, they can calm them down, they can manage the kind of situation as to where they're at right now, but they can't make the move. They can't set the blistering lap time that's going to get them into position to win. they can't actually affect, and it's in that scenario where you almost start feeling sick, because you're feeling this pressure, but you have no escape for it. You have nowhere to put it. You just have to suck it up and just hope.
Yeah, you do. You're absolutely spot on here, Lewis. And it is literally just a case of watching on, letting your drivers do the work. There's obviously, it's like a lottery at this point. Anything can happen. Despite there being 12 drivers on the track, doesn't make it any less difficult. You've got drivers here in the top 12 here in this fight that are all sensational behind the wheel, certainly when it comes to sim racing, and the same can be said for ESL R1. Despite seeing some consistent results in places, we've got new faces getting into the mix. The likes of Kaiki Oliveira, who has genuinely improved as time has gone on, despite him being 11th here. Getting through to the final is such a huge thing for Furia, and the fact that they've managed to adapt themselves here to sim racing, certainly here at ESL, has been a real feel-good story. And I'm sure if you're Kaiki Oliveira, you must take a lot of pride in what you've achieved already in this championship, as well as Joni Tormler, likes of Sebastian Job as well, G2 Esports, who obviously are a very well-renowned outfit when it comes to esports. They are now here in ESL R1 as well, and really launching a great account of themselves, obviously, despite Sebastian Job being outside of that 4th place right now. And obviously Joni Tormler, who has been part of the fraternity for quite some time, has also been a tenacious contender. Further up as well, you've got Mercedes that are looking to bring their expertise in racing as well, with the likes of Marco Pejic and James Baldwin. But for Marcel Cinčić at this moment in time, no doubt he can certainly take a lot of pleasure and a lot of solace out of this performance so far, after that absolutely enthralling lap to land pole position the way he did. To go against someone like Luke Bennett, who has delivered big results, is just massive, and also James Baldwin as well. He hasn't yet got a final win. RH yet to get a final win. He could be on the cusp of greatness, but he has got James Baldwin looming up on him now.
Yeah, Baldwin is closing in. Obviously, for second position in this race, I think it's pretty much set that it's going to be one of these two drivers that's going to finish in second, just based on the fact that Bennett's dropping off the rear end. And I do have fears and concerns towards the BMW's, potentially it's tired, but it's just the longevity in the race. Whatever's going wrong, at least with Team Redline specifically, they've got weaker and weaker as the race has gone on. We've seen that before in the semi-finals. We're kind of seeing it here a little bit with Bennett as well, dropping back into the clutches of Marco Pejic. Obviously, Joni Tormler and Sebastian Job, they are both in BMWs themselves, and they are closing in. Did want to touch on Joni Tormler, who has been, again, fantastic, especially since we've got to the online stuff. Struggled a little bit back in Poland and Katowice with just 2 semi-finals, but from that point has had a few final appearances. I think this is his 4th, including a 2nd place back a few rounds ago, finishing 2nd to Dara McCormack. As they head into the Sachs curve right now, can he find his way past Marco Pejic? Baldwin's closing right in to the rear end of Marcel Cinčić and desperately wants his first win at ESL R1. It would be the 2nd for Mercedes, though, of course, courtesy of Marco Pejic's first win a few rounds back. Joni Tormler staring at the back of him. And again, the top 10 are all involved in quite a tight train. Josh Rogers not a part of that, courtesy of his drive-through penalty for jumping the race start. It's a little wide from Joni Tormler, got to be said. And of course, Kaiki Oliveira having a couple of issues early on in the race, not being a part of this train. Do you think James Baldwin can win this race, or do you think it really comes down to a Cinčić mistake? That's what it needs.
Well, I mean, Baldwin is getting closer, isn't he? And I must say, despite Baldwin not necessarily benefiting for the Mercedes team necessarily in terms of them getting the team's championship, he's still yet to get himself a final win, so he might use that as leverage in his cause, as now Joni Tormler comes under well, he's trying to put the pressure on Marco Pejic here as well. I'd imagine with a little bit of Sebastian Job in mind. He is getting close to Sebastian Job, but I get a feeling it's a little too late as Yuri Kadsdorp now goes side by side with Mitchell de Jong as they whip through the very fast right hand, and now the mouse car looking to get itself in front in the Audi R8, but still the Porsche coming back at him here now as Mitchell de Jong creeps down the inside. Joni Tormler also trying still to put pressure on here on Marco Pejic, of course, in an effort to bring Joe perhaps into this mix too, as they look to go wheel to wheel heading through the stadium section, but still Pejic saying no, as this battle between Kadsdorp and Mitchell de Jong still pursues at this point.
Fantastic attempt there for the pair of them. They're putting on a decent show here in the battle for 9th position. You're absolutely right, by the way, about Tormler and Pejic. Tormler's trying to fight Pejic so hard to bring Sebastian Job more into the fight. Again, Sebastian Job needs 4th position. Out wide goes Mitchell de Jong, to the inside goes Yuri Kadsdorp as we head through the final corner and on to the final lap here of the online spring season. The final lap before we go racing in Munich in a few weeks' time. Who's going to come out on top at the moment? It's between Cinčić and Baldwin, but all the fights are happening way below that back between Bennett, Pajic, Tormula, Job, also back here with De Jong and Kasdorp. Kasdorp's going to surely look to the inside when they get to the hairpin as they head their way back out onto the Parabolica. Can Baldwin do it? I don't think it's close enough.
No, I don't think so. I think Cinčić could be on the cusp of getting his very first final win, and also RAG's very first final win as well. Obviously, though, it will be trouble because this will essentially still allow Redline to take the team's title should it stay like this. They need a lot more than this to, or should I say, a lot more than this RAG, at least to get it a little bit closer to bridge that points gap. But certainly at this point, it looks like it's fate, it's sealed. Though Cinčić, I think, can take a lot of promise out of his performance here tonight.
Yeah, I think there'll be expected disappointment for RAG here if the final few corners are ticked off in the same way and they're not able to take the team's championship. But they're finishing second. They look so strong. They have been the team to beat when it comes to consistency. And are they going to become the team to beat heading into the Rennsport Summit in Munich in a few weeks' time by taking victory in the final race? I'm really glad, by the way, because if this happens, then the commentator's curse doesn't exist. Jasmine, I was right. Potentially, we'll see. For your final corner to come through, Marcel Cinčić is going to lead their way across the line, and the Hungarian is going to take victory for RAG. He had to fight for that one, had to defend from James Baldwin as tight races across the line. Bennett drops back to third. The championship will go the way of Team Redline in the team side of things, but on the drivers, the top man to beat was Marcel Cinčić. Absolutely phenomenal, mostly courtesy of that qualifying lap that put him on pole position by 0.005 of a second. Nailed every single lap after that. What a stunning drive.
Stellar performance there from Marcel Cinčić, and he'll be absolutely delighted with that superb result. Clinical, right to the 9, but I think it spoke a lot about that superb qualifying performance there, Lewis.
It's like I say, when you've got to, I say respond to a lap. He was on the lap when Luke Bennett slapped that one down. Looking at the timesheets, when Bennett put that lap time onto the table, I was like, absolutely, that's pole position. Oh wait, here comes Marcel Cinčić 20 seconds later. Bang, 0.005 faster. It was an incredible lap time, fastest we've seen all day, and then put on an absolute clinic in that race. Pulled out to over a second, was closed back in a little bit by James Baldwin, but still dealt with that pressure really well. Didn't make a single mistake in what was a very heavy pressure cooker. Let's take a look then at highlights from the race. Marcel Cinčić leading off from pole position. Bennett trying to attack into the first corner, but you can see James Baldwin was ready to pounce. This, though, the big drama, a jump start from the number 92, and unfortunately for the Porsche Commander man, he'd be straight to the pit lane to serve a drive-through penalty. Meanwhile, Kaique Oliveira having got a 3 wide, even 4 on the exit of turn 2 with the couple of Mouse Esports drivers and one of the Porsche Commanders. This, though, was the 3 wide fight heading into the arena section. Josh Rogers to the inside, and the RAG and G2 Esports driver Sebastian Job trying to make his way past Erhan Yovski heading up towards Mobile 1. Down the inside, James Baldwin would go as Marcel Cinčić was pulling his way into a race lead of over a second at this kind of point. Meanwhile, the fight between Yuri Kasdorp and Mitchell de Jong was absolutely phenomenal. Going through Mobile 1, going through Sachs Curve, going through the final couple of parts in the penultimate lap. It was brilliant stuff. Marcel Cinčić, though, would come out of the final corner to take victory just about ahead of James Baldwin. A brilliant drive from the Hungarian and from RAG.
Well, on that note, Marcel Cinčić from the side of RAG, congratulations on your amazing victory. I gotta ask you, how does it feel?
I know that before the weekend that my pace could be good for like a pole or for a win, but I didn't really believe at the end that it's possible. So I'm kind of surprised with it, and I'm really happy.
Well, as we take a look back at some of your previous results, you managed to get 3rd over in that LAN environment in Katowice on Hockenheimring and also on Spa as well. So do you prefer competing at a LAN environment? Do you think that's kind of your comfort zone compared to online?
I don't know. Honestly, before the LAN event, I didn't really think like that, because I didn't really have a lot of experience on LAN events. But that Katowice event was happened really well. Every race I could finish on the podium, and I was P2 after the 2 rounds in the standings. So I'm really looking forward also to Munich. So yeah, I think kind of good the LAN events.
So do you think that you have what it takes now, once again in a LAN environment, to take another victory at the major?
yeah, I think pace, luck, and these two mostly, I guess. So I hope both of them I'm gonna have there.
And who do you think your biggest competition is going to be at the major? Any drivers in particular you're keeping an eye on?
I would say that the top 15 drivers in the standings are both great. I really believe that they all of us able to win a race if they have luck and the situation works out like that. So I would say them, but definitely the top 5 is gonna be really tough there. Absolutely.
All right. Well, any final shout outs or words that you have for anybody that supported you, your organization, anyone at all?
Yeah, I thank you. I just can't thank you for everyone, I guess. I think for the team, for my family, also supporting me through watching the race and everything. So I want to thank to them, absolutely.
Well, congratulations again. I'm going to let you go ahead and celebrate with your team.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
George, man, the commentator's curse might not actually be real after all.
Yeah, I think Lewis took a lot of great pride, I think, in getting that one right, so absolutely. But yeah, no, I mean, credit to Marcel. He's one of the feel-good factors of this championship, and I think it's quite a nice Cinderella story, despite them not winning the team's championship, that RHE managed to clinch, obviously, their first final win of the season as well. And Marcel Chinchik has probably been the bridesmaid, never the bride. Let's take a look at that result, by the way. Why not? As we can now discuss it. Of course, it was Marcel Chinchik who went on to seal the deal in getting his own final victory, but it wasn't enough, should we say, to grant RHE necessarily the big result they were looking for. That plaudit has still gone to Luke Bennett, and I'm sure Team Redline will be absolutely thrilled to become the very first team's champions in ESL R1. But of course, there's other big stories as well. Sebastian Job not doing enough, not getting into the top 4, and as it stands, that means that the Big Mac Backham goes through to the major, Jasmine.
The Big Mac himself. I absolutely love that nickname that you have now bestowed upon him, by the way. But let's go ahead and celebrate our team championship winners for the side of Team Redline. Amazing stuff. Yeah. An absolutely hype moment for the side of Team Redline. Commiserations to RHE, but of course they do not walk away empty-handed. 25,000 euros to their name. And then in third position we have Porsche Coanda as well, walking away with 17.5k as well. What an amazing kind of experience it's been for all of these drivers. But I'd like to welcome once again to the broadcast Mark for the side of Team Redline as their team manager. Mark, how's it feel?
Hi guys, good, very good. We got the job done, so it's a big relief, of course. Yeah, happy to be the team champions, and yeah, get the job done. No surprise in the final, luckily.
Now I got to ask you. So, oh, go ahead.
No, sorry, I'll use it there. Obviously, looking ahead, I mean, looking at qualifying, I mean, it was fascinating. I want to know what was going through your head when Chinchik hit pole position. That must have been a little moment where you thought, oh, we might be in trouble.
Yeah. To be honest, we were really happy with Luke's lap. I think it was his PB. Really put a really good lap out there. So we were really surprised that Chinchik went faster. So you're right, we were a bit concerned there. But yeah, in the end, we also did our homework in the master department, and then once Erhan, I think he qualified P7, something like that. Then we knew that once we keep it on the road, once we keep it clean, then it should be pretty straightforward. So that was a bit of a relief. But yeah, of course, a really good lap by Chinchik.
Now, the whole Rensport and ESL R1 experience has been a mix of both individual driver performance, but also the team aspect as well. What do you think it is that sets you, yourself, your team, the entirety of Team Redline apart from a lot of the other teams that we've seen here?
I think just really the overall strength of the team. I mean, we got really good drivers here in ESL R1. I think every team has really good drivers, and in general, no one is here by accident. But I think across the board as a team, we are, well, I would say we are the strongest. Of course, I'm going to say that, but that's my honest belief. So that's one factor. And then of course also, the experience is a big factor as well. The way you prepare it, the way you sort of approach situations. Where it's just one lap, where it's just one semi-final, one final. I think our experience helps us a lot there. So I think these two factors I would say.
Yeah, I mean, Mark, obviously Team Redline themselves have such a plethora of history when it comes to sim racing. Many successes over the course of many years of competitive action. But stepping into ESL for the very first time and being the first team to win, should we say, an ESL major here at ESL R1 as well, or should we say, in terms of a team's championship, to win that title, to be the very first, does that rank high on the list of achievements for Team Redline?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I just said, every team here, every driver is super strong, and especially after the start in Katowice, we were really the mix there. It was always an uphill battle, so to speak. So it wasn't smooth sailing at all. So it was always, kept us on our toes, and it was quite interesting. It was a really tough competition as well. So it definitely ranks up there with our best achievements for sure.
Well, before we let you go, my final question, any final shout-outs, words you want to give to anyone?
Shout-outs, yeah. I mean, of course, first of all to our drivers. I mean, not all have been in the final today, but across the season, they've done a fantastic job. And they're the main reason why we are champions. Then, of course, also the support team, all of our engineers, everyone helping behind the scenes. It wouldn't be possible without them as well. And together as a team, we push forward, we make these things happen. So, yeah, shout out to those guys.
Well, congratulations again. We're going to go ahead and let you celebrate.
Yes, awesome. Thank you. See you in Munich.
Amazing stuff. My question to you is, though, George, how do you think they actually celebrate after a victory like this?
Well, I mean, Team Redline, they have certainly a very staunch level of competitors, but at the same time, they are very good feel-good characters as well. I mean, you've got the likes of Max Verstappen there, who's won many Formula One titles, as well as great guys like Enzo Benito, who we've currently seen this season as well, Kevin Siggy, not to mention Jeffrey Rietveld, big names, of course, that have been part of this season and this championship grind. And obviously, Luke Bennett has also provided many a great moment for Team Redline, taking final wins as well. But certainly, this will rank very highly. They're no doubt going to celebrate. They're going to love it, of course. And they've won such a plethora of championships, but this one I think will mean a lot. And as we alluded or listened to Mark, he did, of course, let us know how much it meant to them.
Well, I think on that note, it's only right that we go ahead and take a look at the drivers that will be joining us in Munich for the major as well. Boy, oh boy, this was a bit of a roller coaster, wasn't it? Unfortunately, Sebastian Job not quite making the cut. It would have been such a great story, but as you did mention, Mac Backham, the big Mac, making it through to the major. What are your hopes, expectations, dreams, wishes, anything, George?
Well, I think it's a very, very good selection of drivers we got heading through to the major. Commiserations, of course, to Sebastian Job, who really did give it everything, but unfortunately just did not seem to have the pace in that final race to deliver. Was stuck behind his teammate Joni Tormela for quite some time, but still, nonetheless, I think there is a very exciting time to come. Obviously, Mac had very little say in what happened tonight. He, of course, not competing in the semi-final or the final due to an exit in the quarters. So to get through all of tonight, and of course, I can imagine that he was watching on, hoping and praying that he did get it to land his way. To come out on top at this point after what had to be a roller coaster of emotions, it probably means a lot to him, I would say, at this stage.
Yeah, I'm sure it absolutely does. Now, let's have a bit of a throwback moment. We've had a bit of a roller coaster here at ESL R1. We've seen plenty of upsets. We've seen plenty of underdogs rising to the occasion as well and giving us one heck of a performance too. Were there any sort of surprising moments that were your particular favourite? Aside from today, of course, because it's final round.
Oh, well, I mean, everything has been sensational, but I think, obviously, the back-to-back from Dara McCormack, I think, was an incredible story. We hadn't seen a driver do that yet. We hadn't seen a driver take 2 final wins, but when Dara McCormack did that, it certainly was special. He made history this year.
Yeah, he definitely did, but I think another driver that might have made history over here at ESL R1 is the Big Mac himself. Big Mac, how are you feeling? You've got that confirmed spot in the major now.
Yeah, is it actually confirmed, or then I'll take it.
Yeah, it is confirmed. There you go. I have news just in that it is indeed confirmed. How does it feel? You looking forward to it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously it was a bit gutted to not race today. I would have liked to, let's say, earn it on my own in a way, but yeah, I'm obviously the goal was to make it to the major in Munich. So yeah, that it happened today. Obviously, super happy with that, and yeah, can't wait to see everyone there. And yeah, hopefully, I can yeah, kind of get to Sunday. Will be tough from P24, I guess I'd be, but we'll give it our all.
Hey, it is tough, but at the same time, you are there. You were going to Munich. Obviously, I remember us discussing at the very, very start of the campaign. Have you taken a lot? Has there been a huge learning curve throughout the story of this title run? Because obviously, it's one thing to do it in a LAN environment, but online is such a different setting. But now you're jumping back into the LAN environment again. How do you feel about that prospect?
Well, I mean, personally, I definitely feel like I'm a more complete driver when I'm driving online, which I guess makes sense. You know, you're used to your own equipment, so I'm yeah, for sure better online. But yeah, it has been a pretty steep learning curve, especially the first 2 rounds. Yeah, I'm not someone that adjusts hyper quick, so the first 2 rounds in Katowice were a little bit off, I feel, but after that I picked up the pace quite well. So I hope everything that I learned online, that I can take that with me to the LAN event, and hopefully it's quite applicable and we can get some good results.
Well, on that note, is there anything in particular you're planning to do differently this time in order to adapt a lot quicker, maybe easier to that LAN environment once again? Any kind of changes up to the schedule?
To be honest, I haven't really given it much thought. I was just kind of thinking about today. First needed to make it to the major. I guess in general, it's always going to be pretty similar, right? It's just going to practice as hard as I can, try to control what I can control, and see from there.
Well, Mac, we know what it'll mean to you, obviously, heading through to the final. How have Porsche Coanda assessed their visit here at ESL as a team? Has it been a positive insight, or do you think there are still steps that you guys can sort of obtain to learn to improve?
No, I think overall it's been a pretty positive experience. For sure, we have loads of room to improve, I think, from all of us, all 4 of us. I didn't really think we all kind of, yeah, let's say, unleashed our full potential. We definitely, all of us, I think, made some mistakes, which cost us, but overall still P3, very good results, and 3 people to the major. Obviously super happy with that, so I wouldn't say I'm unhappy, but I do think we have more in the tank, so I'm also really looking forward to the second season.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing you go full throttle at the major itself. Any final words?
Yeah, I'm just kind of want to thank the whole team, of course. Everyone's been super supportive. It was loads of fun. We have a lot of people around here watching the race, and yeah, obviously the climax of them making it through is quite special. So yeah, super thankful for that, and can't wait to Munich.
We'll see you in Munich then. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
George, how are you feeling? You were the one that coined the term the Big Mac.
I'm proud of that. I'm really proud of that. Yeah, no, I mentioned it. I actually did speak to Matt Backham about it when I first conned it and brought it up, and he said, yeah, you can call me that, it's no problem. So he is relatively tall as well, so it does sort of help. So yeah, it's here to stay. Put it that way, it's here to stay.
All right, so George, what I want you to do, give me a bit of a TLDR as to the entire ESL R1 experience so far, or today in particular.
Well, it's definitely, if you want to sum up, I suppose, in a few words here, what ESL R1 is all about, it is all about pace, furore, and competitive action. We have seen certainly lots of that this season, and it's stunning to see so many different drivers getting their final wins in different rounds of the championship. We have certainly seen and told, shall I say, a very incredible story, I think, with various different high-end drivers that have come into ESL R1 for the first time on a platform that they don't relatively know that well, because it is brand new. It is certainly new to everybody, certainly here in the sim racing community, who I'm sure can't wait to play Rennsport, as can I. Obviously can't wait to play it myself, and obviously I look forward to seeing what the future has in store. And obviously I think it's the perfect cocktail, I think, in terms of a visit to Munich, a fantastic summit occasion. Obviously get your tickets as well, use that exclamation mark tickets to find out all the news when it comes out, of course, and make sure you obtain yours. Get more information on that too, folks. I really do implore you do that, because after what we saw in Katowice, this will only get bigger, and I can't wait to see what the future has in store for ESL R1.
And as you, just echoing what you've said as well, George, the perfect opportunity for the folks that will be joining us in Munich to try out Rennsport for themselves as well. Head over to the major. We look forward to seeing you all there. But as always, none of this would be possible without our fantastic partners over at VRS. To find out more about their products, go ahead and type !VRS in the chat. And if on the off chance, which I'm sure this is definitely going to be the case, you simply cannot wait for Munich and you want to be updated with all of the ESL R1 goings on, go ahead and type !social in the chat as well. And remember to use that hashtag ESL R1 too. I'm super looking forward to it. Who do you have though, George? Because you're not going to be joining us in Munich, Sag. But who do you have as the victor, the winner of ESL R1 at the major? I got to get your prediction now.
Ooh, I'm going to put it on the line. I don't think his story's over. I'm going for the great Dara McCormack. I think he's going to make it a third win, and it's going to be a big win. It's going to be a major win. I think it's Dara McCormack. He's going to take 3. Let's go for it.
All right, well, we'll find out whether or not the Caster Curse works on LAN as well as online as well. George, I want to give a big thank you to yourself for continuing to join me on this ESL R1 journey. A big shout out to all of our fantastic production team, people that have been tuning in from home, and of course, all of our wonderful drivers. Bring on the major, baby.
I'm in my element, it's evident that there's levels to the game. All of those dark nights I got then, breaking my back to make it out, got me feeling like pain. I ain't never need your help, I know you wishing me well, a penny for your thoughts, but seeing no change. I snap for the sun like Diddy, the riches got a mad at son, I'm like Billy. I ain't never switch up, whole team with me, but known for my city like OAGZ. Fabulous, they tried to dabble in it, and they hate the fact that they may have to witness. You tryna aim for the top like this, and you're in your element with a fire like this, and they hoping you falling and praying you miss, but it's all in the risk. I got you with the switch, you know. I'm in the zone. Peace.